The Board of County Commissioners back in session. Next on the agenda will be Mr. H.D. Carrington, Wing CEO report.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's good to be here. What I wanted to do this morning is sort of go over where the Hospital Board of Directors are and some recommendations that they're making to the County Commissioners, and also I'll do a quick update on the hospital as a result of the storm, and then also sort of where we are right now. The hospital board did not meet in October, because of the storm, and what we decided to do was to have a finance committee meeting and go over the September 30th end of the year financials, which is the end of our fiscal year. And then we did not have a regular board meeting, and that was on November the 5th. We still are meeting as a finance committee before the board meets, so we can go over financials. Hopefully we'll start back after the first of the year with educating the finance committee and the board of directors on how hospitals operate and what healthcare looks like, which will help them to be more engaged and also be able to make better decisions and give better direction for me and the other staff at the hospital. We did have our regular meeting on November 29th, and at that meeting there were quite a few things that came up that the board of the hospital would like to make as recommendations to the county commissioners for your action. And I'll just go through each one of these and I'll tell you what the recommendation is. And then I'll also tell you the reasons that were pointed out at the meetings by different members. First one is the Sacred Heart proposal. And from the hospital board, it's recommended that the county reject this proposal and to reconfigure healthcare in Franklin County. The reasons are the county would relinquish any control it has regarding healthcare for its citizens. There's no guarantee of services to be provided into the future. Another reason is that services in Carabel would be reduced to 2 days per week. The new facility would not include inpatient services, which the board feels are critical to the residents of this area. The proposal would include a significant investment by the county to build and pay for a new facility and furnishings to be leased to Sacred Heart at a nominal rate. The county would have to pay Sacred Heart $500,000 per year for uncompensated care. This comes as a recommendation from the hospital board for action by the Board of Commissioners. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. I don't know if we want to do these individually or what. I would think that'd probably be the best way.
You want to do it individually? We're going.
Why don't we listen to everything comprehensively and then take it back?
All right.
We did.
The second one is has to do with Alliant Management Services proposal. And again, from the board, it is recommended that the county reject the current proposal and authorize the board, hospital board, to negotiate an agreement with Alliant to provide needed management services at a reasonable cost to be presented to the Board of County Commissioners for approval by the end of January 2019. The feeling of the hospital board was that the cost of $240,000 per year is too high for the services that were going to be provided. The other thing is that Alliant is not at risk. That is, they get paid whether improvements are made or not. And the third thing is the hospital board needs to decide which management services are needed and then let Alliant, and if they're not willing to, maybe talk to some other management companies to make a proposal to provide the services that the hospital board feels like we need at the hospital. So that's the second recommendation. And the third recommendation is that it is recommended by the hospital board that the county authorize the hospital board to spend up to $50,000 to readdress the building of new patient care areas to be paid out of the trust fund. Within 3 months, the hospital board will make a recommendation to the county commissioners that will include the scope of the project, the costs associated with it, pro forma financial statements, and details of how it would be paid for. The reasons for this recommendation is that the citizens of Franklin County want an upgraded facility and voted for it in 2007. We have excellent staff and doctors serving our patients, but the facility needs to be updated. It is not cost effective to renovate patient care areas in the existing facility. A new hospital will allow us to recruit physicians to live and practice in the area. And the last one, it will allow us to offer more services locally to provide access and convenience to the citizens of Franklin County. And those are the three I think that would probably be sort of lumped together. Now, I do have a couple of equipment requests that were on the budget for fiscal year 2019 that I'll go through when we finish this.
Okay. On this, the Sacred Heart proposal, they don't want to build no hospital, do they?
They want to, I think their wording was to reconfigure healthcare in Franklin County, and what they were proposing was to build a new facility, or actually they would not build the facility. The county or the taxpayers would build the facility, and it would include a new emergency room, all of the ancillary services, lab, x-ray, respiratory therapy, pharmacy, the things that you need to support an ER. And then it was actually going to be a two-story facility, and on the second floor would be physicians' offices. So the county would build the facility and pay for it and furnish it, which I'm not sure if that includes, you know, it wasn't a proposal, it was more of a PowerPoint presentation. And, you know, the wording in there was that a new building and furnishings. And then that building and furnishings would be leased back to Sacred Heart at a nominal rate, which was not stated in the proposal.
But we wanted, the people wanted a hospital. That what they, when we went out for the sales tax, we asked for a hospital. That's supposed to be part of the money. We didn't have, you know, this emergency room or whatever they were talking about, that wasn't what the people wanted. We supposed to do what the people want.
What was the reason they were gonna close Carabao down 2 days, working only 2 days a week?
I don't really know. I have not talked to, I had met with Roger Hall back probably 4 months ago, something like that, before the proposal came, and we talked about the different things. I don't know why they would make that decision.
If I may, Commissioners, based on a discussion with Mr. I've had more discussions with Mr. Roger Hall than Mr. Cannington has. That's a numbers decision, based on the numbers that they ran, because they spent a lot of time running numbers for the county. They felt that it was, business-wise, they could only support 2 days a week with the clientele that they get on that side of the county, at the eastern end. That's why it was that's why they had it down to 2 days. And they said if the practice builds up and they get more clients, I'll just use that term, you know, they would expand to further days. But there's something else I want to put on the record that Mr. Cannington, he said in a general manner, when he said the county would relinquish any control it has regarding health care for citizens. And I'm anticipating a question from Commissioner Bolt, is that two things. You are going to lose your critical access designation with Sacred Heart. Mr. Hall told me that point blank. He said it's not a secret. That's their plan, because they would like to move that designation over to the St. Joe Hospital. So that's with that, you lose that. Everybody that I've talked to, through healthcare, which tells me the same thing. You lose that, you don't get it back. Now, I'm not as versed with a certificate of need, but I know that also would be in jeopardy with Sacred Heart. And Mr. Cannington, you could explain more than I can what the role of the certificate of need is.
The Certificate of Need is a state program that it was really established to, it was primarily established for inpatient beds, but they also expanded it to include certain high-tech things like heart catheterizations and CT scans, and there was a dollar threshold anytime a hospital or healthcare facility wanted to spend a certain amount of money, or if they wanted to add certain new services, and it always included hospital beds, then they had to go through the state and do what they call an application for a certificate of need, and they had to prove that there was need in the community considering the other healthcare facilities around it. And the primary reason was to keep companies from coming in and building unnecessary healthcare services, which would diminish the use of other facilities, and sometimes that's not a good thing. And so if we close the hospital, then we would lose a certificate of need that we have to operate the hospital beds. That's a state designation. The critical access hospital designation is a federal designation by Medicare, and that is set up for rural hospitals that are necessary or critical to their communities or to the surrounding area, and you have to be at least 35 miles from the next nearest hospital or critical access hospital in order to be approved. Now, there were a lot of hospitals that were grandfathered in, but that rule changed. It was called a necessary provider, and that provision went away in 2006. So since then, if you were not at least 35 miles from the next nearest facility, you could not be designated as a critical access hospital unless there were some geographic considerations like in mountainous areas or coastal areas. So as it is right now, Sacred Heart, the hospital over in Port St. Joe, cannot be a critical access hospital because we're too close to them. If this hospital closes, then they could go and apply for critical access hospital status and would most likely be approved. That's what I would think. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay.
Pledge of the board on this discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll ask a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Kennington, as I understood it, the proposal from Sacred Heart did not involve an ER. A minute ago, you said that ER facilities, I just want clarification to make sure I know what I'm talking about.
It did involve an ER.
Okay.
It was going to be a fully staffed ER, 24/7. It was going to have all of the, when you have an emergency room, you have to have diagnostic procedures available so that people can do, the doctors can diagnose the patients that come in. And so you're required to have lab and x-ray and CT and pharmacy and respiratory therapy at a minimum. And so it would include all of those services, which are called ancillary services. And then that was all going to be on the first floor. Plus on the first floor there was going to be therapy services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. But then on the second floor was going to be all physician offices, special primary care, and I think some specialty physicians, is my understanding. Again, it wasn't a proposal where everything's outlined. It was more of it was a PowerPoint presentation, but that's what I gleaned from it. But it definitely included in the emergency department.
Well, where the hospital gonna be?
The hospital as we know it right now would not be there. I mean, I don't know. There was nothing in there proposal or whatever that said what was going to happen in the hospital. They were going to set up a community health board or work with the county to set it up. The main things that I saw was that the county would build a new facility that I've explained before, and that you would lease it back to Sacred Heart at a nominal rate, and that the county would pay, and they'd have a clinic over in Carabel 2 days a week, and the county would pay Sacred Heart $500,000 per year for uncompensated care. And those were the major provisions that I saw. There was no mention of other healthcare services.
I mean, if a person need to be in the hospital bed for 3 days, they ship them somewhere?
They would ship them somewhere. Now, there was mention of a holding area because a part of an emergency room, sometimes a patient will come in with certain things where they're not sure that they need to be admitted, but they also are not comfortable, the doctor's not comfortable with discharging the patient to home, and so they can put them in observation. The rules used to be up to 24 hours, then it was extended to 48, but it's not an inpatient bed, it's a holding area. And there are certain diagnoses that you cannot, patients need to be admitted, like for dehydration, congestive heart failures, UTIs, things like that. But it's not an inpatient bed. We would totally lose the inpatient beds. And the reason that's important is because, again, it goes back to the critical access hospital designation. We would lose that because we are required, as a CAH, we're required to have a 24/7 ER, but you're also required to have certain number of, or not a certain number, but you have to keep patients, you have to have inpatient services available.
Mr. Chairman.
Right.
I'd like to point out, of course, I realize it's just a preview presentation, but from all the folks that I've talked to, this is the peace of mind that we need in this county. The location of that new proposed facility needs to be relative to any future storm event. Weems Memorial Hospital, I understand, was one of the few hospitals in Florida that is mandated to close in terms of a storm event like we just had, and we did. We need to be thinking about that as a future plan as well. So my feelings are that we have an opportunity here to cherry pick some good ideas with these proposals. And I think we should really look into this much more strategically. Can you comment on the visit that you had with TMH and the insight that you had with the folks up there and how they see their role in supporting our county?
When I met with TMH last Friday,
December
Friday was a week ago, excuse me, my days run together. But when I met with Mark O'Brien, which is the first meeting, I've talked to him on the phone a few times, but I have not really, that was the first opportunity I had to meet him. And basically, at one time, this hospital had a management agreement with TMH, but it's always been a partnership or an affiliation agreement with them, and this was pretty much verified by Mark O'Brien that they're not really interested in managing any rural hospital, but they do see themselves as a partner. And he basically said that he would assist us with improving our facility, with telemedicine services, with providing, especially on the clinical side, the patient care type side, resources of a technical nature, things like recruiting for healthcare workers, physicians, things like that, even sending specialists down here like surgeons and neurologists and things like that because they have those. He also made it very clear that they really didn't need, he wants us to take care of the patients that are at a, the 2 and 3 day stay levels, the less acute patients. They don't really need those. They don't want those. Hopefully part of that is because it's an inconvenience when families have to travel 70 or 80 miles to visit a patient that again may be only getting IVs or things like that. But what they want to be is the things that we cannot take care of here, that they will support those. But we're looking at maybe having a formal agreement with them that will not be a management contract. It will be more of a partnership or an affiliation agreement, so that they can help us do a better job of what we're doing, improving the ease of referrals and things like that. And then they'll also assist us with improving what we can do here. Does that?
That does clarify. And so it seems to me that we need a roadmap and a plan of care for executing this new vision of our healthcare here in Franklin County. We have 4 potential choices, and the entire foundation of these decisions is for the people. The most valuable asset that we have in this county is the health of our people. The most valuable asset that we have in this county is the health of our people. It's not the brick and mortar, the courthouse, or anything else. It's the health of our people. And I think this is extremely critical. And we need careful planning. No, I understand that the commission is not interested in managing the hospital on a hands-on basis, and that's why we have folks helping us do that in boards, et cetera. But guiding the compass for where we go in the future is, I think, at a position we need to decide to have right now.
You know what? To tell you the truth, I'm looking at these proposals. I'm very disappointed in both of them, because Sacred Heart, they really don't want, all they want is that piece of paper to help them. They not interested in helping us, really. That was to make them money, and the other company, it just a line. All they interested in money. They want to charge somebody $240,000 to do nothing. I don't see it don't make sense what they're saying. They not gonna be no risk. They want you to pay them $240,000 to come in here, and what are you gonna get for it? An annual report, a budget, or something like that, or whatever they do at the end of the year? I mean, it don't make that what they doing. That's gonna be off the top of your money. What you're making already, you got to pay them $200. They can't even guarantee they ain't said they'll make you that. So all they doing is coming and taking out. They ain't putting nothing back. People do that though, 'cause they think, 'cause we got the penny coming in, they just can come in and just take anything, and we supposed to take it. But I don't see why we can't run that hospital. If you need a line to come in there, why you come out better just letting them come in and hand you a bill. It ain't gonna be no $240,000 if you need them.
To complement what you're saying, I feel like, Mr. Cannington, it's important that we anchor you here. We've had discussions, we've talked, and you bring a great deal of ground experience here with us for the time that you've been here. And it seems to me that this county needs a permanency here for you, and potentially you need to land as well. And you're in the driver's seat to see all of these different options that we have now. And you've talked about the philosophy, and you have the rural healthcare mindset that we are. And I would like to recommend that this board, after having this proposal and everything, consider making Mr. Cannington more of a permanent person here within our county on behalf of our hospital and healthcare system. Can we talk about that potential?
Mr. Chairman,
Is that appropriate?
before Michael speaks, can I say something? You know, having grown up in this county, been around this county, this is us. At the end of the day, we all we got. It'd be nice if somebody wanted to actually help and actually do something, but you know, there are more cons than our pros in the proposals we're looking at. And I mean, I would like to see us as a county. I think hitting on what Commissioner Bolt said, you know, we've asked a lot of people to commit a lot of things to us, but we've not wanted to commit. So I'd like to put that in the form of a motion. I think we need to have the hospital board start doing negotiations with Mr. Cannington to be our permanent CEO. And so we can move forward on some of these situations.
Okay. I got a motion on the floor from Commissioner Jones. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, discussion. My discussion is this. In this permanent, you wanna make Mr. Carrington the permanent CEO? Now, what we gonna do with these recommendations? Is we gonna,
I think we're still gonna get to them. I just think that our actually committing something is more important than what we're telling everybody else they're not committing to us.
I mean,
That's just my thought.
what I'm asking is, we gonna keep these, throw them away?
No, we keep them. I think this is part of Mr. Harrington's legacy. To begin, you've got a foothold here, and you then would be in a position through your board to give us advice on, and how you see this as a picture.
We can't keep all of them because we got to
No.
reject some.
Let me clarify, Mr. Chairman. I didn't want to try to break off what I'm saying now and the rest of this all at one time. So that's why I made a single motion.
So you wanna do it one at a time?
Well, I'm just doing this one.
Okay.
By itself is my motion.
Okay, that's good. All
Oh, I
right.
got one
Any more
comment here
discussion?
before- yeah.
Go ahead.
As we looked at these proposals, one of the things was, especially in the Alliant proposal, was to have a CEO that would be over like 2 different hospitals, which is a cost-saving measure for the county. Number 2, if we hire a permanent CEO and then you turn around and hire Alliant or anybody else, they may want their own CEO. So then you get back into having to pay severance if you hire Mr. Cannington, and then you're gonna let him go because your management person wants their own CEO. Then you're looking at another $80,000 in severance pay, which we had to pay the last CEO before Mr. Cannington. I think you need to, you know, in a motion the second's made, and that's fine, but I will not agree to it. I will oppose it based on we don't know which management company, or if we're gonna have a management company. We wanted a management company to get the board out from under it, because there's nobody on this board that has a healthcare experience to manage a hospital. Having a management company that knows the ins and outs of critical access and a certificate of need and all these other things, which nobody on this board has experienced at, including myself, was the whole thing of trying to get a management company in here to manage the hospital. I do understand that the cost is too high for Alliant. I do understand that the board is not particularly looking at Sacred Heart in a advantageous way. But if you reject Sacred Heart and then you don't work out some kind of agreement with Alliant, then you're totally out of the management services that anybody's proposed to do this. Having said that, the current thing that Alliant Management proposal, and is recommended by the board that they reject the current proposal, we're just going back to square one, and if that's the desire of the board to try to run this hospital with a CEO and no help from an outside management firm, then that's the call of the board. That's the will of the board. But I just don't think that until you make up your mind whether you're going to, and it goes into the new hospital and you're looking at new care patient areas. The whole point was to get them, if we're gonna go with a management company, look at what has already been paid for, what the new facility that we've already looked at has in it. Is that adequate for the new management company? Is that what they recommend? All these things are tied together, whether or not you're gonna have a management company or not. And whether you're just going to take it back over as a county and try to run it as a county with a CEO. Those are decisions that has to be made by the board. But until we find out exactly what Alliance Management proposal, if it's you're going to go back and look at trying to negotiate and what those services are needed, I don't see where you're moving ahead any at all. There's just too much. Even building a new facility and not having the management service provider that you may get to look at this new facility and see if it's adequate with what's already been paid for with architecture fees and everything else that we've done put into this new facility, which is close to $1 million that we've already spent in all these architectural fees and consultant fees and everything else. Now we want to go back and recreate the wheel. I don't know. It's up to y'all. It's up to the board. It's not up to me. But those are my opinions. And if the board moves forward with hiring Mr. Canton as the permanent CEO, I will oppose it.
This him. Now they talking about these proposals. They not proposals. In my opinion, and I'm just one commissioner. Both of these is rip-offs. I mean, I don't see no proposals here. I seen something for both of their advantage, and nothing for us. And I'm sorry. That's just the way I feel about it. Any more discussion?
With regard to these proposals, to analyze these proposals correctly, we need an anchor. We need some leadership. And that leadership is in two areas. That's with Mr. Carrington, in my opinion, and his supporting board to bring back these recommendations. To have a management company out there is putting this county at arm's length in terms of our health care. No, we're not trying to, be controlling our health care as a county commission, but we are here for watch care for the people. And I've seen these management companies. I think we saw one here a couple years ago, and it just seemed like it was so arm's length. I believe we need accountability, and that is found in the skill level that Mr. Carrington has, and his board is continuing to grow. And I would be in favor of getting a good compass of leadership here as we go forward to just make these decisions.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I really can't separate myself as your county coordinator and the chairman of the hospital board, but I need to speak for the hospital board here. We've revamped the board to some degree, and we've worked with, I worked with both Mr. Cooper, the previous CEO, and Mr. Cannington. I would say this, Mr. Cannington, and I know he doesn't like the whole pat in the back thing. In the 6 or 7 months he's been here, he's done more for Weems Memorial and the healthcare of this county than Mr. Cooper did in 4 years he was here. So, and the board backs me on that, and they feel the same way. They've expressed that in a meeting. I think it's my role to express the Weems Board of Directors their concerns and what they like. And yes, maybe this might be alien to y'all. You've never heard this before. But the current Weems Board of Directors, we have a vision of where we think healthcare needs to be. And it needs to be the Weems Board of Directors, a CEO, TMH on the clinical side providing the services, and a management company on the other side providing specific services that we agreed to with them that needs to be protected. Now, again, I am speaking for the board of directors. That's the role you guys had me set up in. But the problem is, I think we're at the point where we need to decide one way or the other where we're going to go. And that's what the board is actually asking you guys. They're giving you their recommendations, but they know that the final decision is yours. You know, are we going to, do you want us to renegotiate with Sacred Heart? Is that direction the board wants to go in? Do you want to close the hospital, let Sacred Heart build, well, we're building the facility and let them manage that facility for us? Do you want us to renegotiate with Alliant as to the role they would play here? And let me give some history about Alliant and the management company. At the time, when the board talked about management company, the board talked about getting someone in here that would be at risk, that would take the liability along with the management from this Board of County Commissioners. The Weems Board of Directors, their opinion is you are only getting half of the deal. You're getting the management services, but you're still stuck with the risk. That's what scares the Weems Board of Directors. And so we're at the point, and I can move on to the building. Even at the meeting we had with Mark O'Brien, he said, you want to help me help you? You need a new building. It's easier for me to recruit services for Franklin County, new doctors, telemedicine, whatever it needs, if you have a new structure. So all this is what was put before the Weems Board of Directors, and this is their recommendation to you. But it is still this board's decision as to what direction we want to go in. But I do think, I would say this to you, we need to move. We have been promising this new facility, no matter what we want to call it, a new hospital, new facility, we've been promising this to the people for too long now. We've been, as Commissioner Parrish has said over and over again, we've been collecting this tax for all these years. We need to do something. We've made promises to the people, we need to do something. And
Do y'all wanna add starting a new building in your motion?
well,
No,
I think,
not right
I'm
now.
going
Not
to
a-
make the motion.
and can I ask a clarification of the motion? That's what I also stood up
Yeah.
for. Is it just to allow the Weems Board of Directors to start negotiations with Mr. Camden and bring that back to you for you to say rejection or exception? Is that what we're doing?
Well, that would be the way we've always done it, hasn't it?
It is.
No, my motion was to couple Mr. Cannington into a permanent CEO of our hospital to give us leadership and guide his board.
Based
Well,
on
hi.
negotiations with, between, to
Mr.
be brought
Chairman.
back to this board for
That's
your
a-
approval.
that's a secondary role of that board, that's understood.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead.
just a point of order, now it's up to Commissioner Jones if I've written this down incorrectly, but the way I had the motion from Commissioner Jones and seconded by Commissioner Bolt is to authorize the hospital board to negotiate with Mr. Cannington as the potential permanent CEO at Weems, and that of course infers that a recommendation will be returned back to this board to make a decision. Was that your motion as you intended it, Commissioner
Yep,
Jones?
that was it. But since we're already talking about it and everybody wants to talk about the rest of them, we'll just put them all together. I recommend that we go with the recommendations of this board, and that the CEO has brought to us today, just because of the timeline involved, how long it's been going on. I think this board owes it to the people of Franklin County. Whether we find a way to get out of the risk or not, we're already here. But I think we need to move forward with building a new hospital and put a shovel in the ground. And so my recommendation is to reject Sacred Heart's proposal, reject Alliance's current proposal, to see what we can do to move forward to getting a cost for a real cost of what it's gonna cost to build this new facility, and see about getting it done. That's my motion.
Commissioner Bolt, do you amend your second?
I just want to be clear, we seem to have a lot of cloudiness in this motion. We're looking for what you had just said, to have Mr. Carrington go back to his board and negotiate a permanent position with us. That's my primary motion, to have a leader. And then to secondarily ask the board, I think it's maybe a second motion, that we ask the Weems Memorial Hospital Board to analyze these proposals and give us a recommendation where to go forward from there.
But to be clear, they have, sir, these are.
They have
This
rejected.
is their analyzation they're recommending to us.
Okay,
So-
then I would go with their recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, again, a point of clarification, it may be that Mr. Cannington or Mr. Morone may be the better person to answer this, but in going back to the architect and spending up to $50,000, which is what I heard, is there a discussion just to update the current cost analysis of the previously approved
Right.
hospital plans?
That's
Not-
what I understood, yes.
Okay, because you're talking an entirely different animal if you're talking about changing what USDA has
Oh,
approved.
no.
You're just
no.
talking about an update of the current cost estimate to complete.
Right.
Correct.
Okay,
And
we're
and
good.
included in that, I forgot about this, but included in that, and Heather was talking about it earlier, you would have to do a USDA pre-app to be included in that too.
No, we already have an application
Okay,
approved. What
okay.
USD has called me for, they actually called me while I was sitting there with
Okay.
Mr. Cannington and Mark O'Brien. They need a status update. They want a status update on
We're about to
as
give
to where
them
we are.
Right.
The problem is, we don't know what it costs today
Right.
to build this building, and I
Right.
think that's what
That's-
Mr. Cannington and Attorney Schuler is alluding to here. That's all Mr. Cannington is asking for.
Yes,
Because there was a motion in the past, I'm sorry, there was a motion in the past that not to spend any more money.
Oh, that was because of the retainer
architects.
money we were spending.
Yes, so he used that motion to do it. And I will say this, in addition, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cannington, Mr. Mark O'Brien also told us, because they are in the middle of two large construction projects themselves, if he can help us with that at no cost to the county, he will. So he's asked Mr. Cannington, before you go anywhere else, send the plans to me, and we'll see if we can help you guys take care of this. So maybe it would be free. Maybe, I don't know, but we're going to try our best. We're gonna get it to TMH first and see if they can help us. If they can't, they can't.
Since this
For the cost
is,
analysis.
since this is not really public information, does that have to be part of the motion to allow them to do it? I mean, our plans, it isn't public knowledge, right? I mean,
Yeah, we had public
Okay.
several years ago, I believe,
all
Commissioner
right,
Jones.
I'm just trying to help.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
because Mr.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you, Commissioner Lockley, or Chairman, if I may, Commissioner Bolt, I just want to confirm with the record that you are amending your second to include the 3 additional items that Commissioner Jones has added to the motion. And the three items he added specifically was to accept the hospital board's recommendation to reject the offer from Sacred Heart, to reject the offer from Alliant, and to authorize up to $50,000 out of the healthcare trust fund to update the cost analysis to build the hospital as those architectural plans have been previously approved by USDA. That's the way I understood Commissioner Jones, the 3 additional, and I just need to confirm for the record if you are amending your second to include those additional items or not.
Where's that $50,000 money gonna come from?
The healthcare trust fund is what I heard in the report from Mr.
And we've
Canning.
got enough money in there to do this?
There's a
We're
couple
okay
$1
with
million
that?
in there, yes,
Okay,
sir.
All right, okay. Then I would amend my motion regarding that.
But I understood his motion to include putting shovels in the ground and getting ready to go on this facility.
What?
Is
Well,
that
no,
correct?
I'm saying that's my final outcome, that I'm committing to move in the direction of building this building. That's what I'm saying. It's not part of the motion, it was just a comment.
Okay.
That's the way I understood your comment, Commissioner Jones.
Yep.
Can I?
Because, and here's the thing, I see the building as the first step to us fixing healthcare in Franklin County that does need help. But we can't fix everything else without something to bring it to, or something to centralize it on, so. The better and different, how I feel about it.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I may ask one other question, Mr. Morone. USDA had approved essentially a loan commitment letter to the county with a 5-year expiration date. My memory tells me we're probably at least 3 years into the 5, but you've been dealing with
If
that.
not
more.
closer, yeah, I have to double check.
Can you double check that?
Exactly, I will.
And find out if there's a need from USDA for us to extend that, and if so, what that process would be?
Definitely a status update.
Yeah, okay.
You had something to say?
I'm good, thank you.
Nah.
What about these next two items? The ultrasound and the laboratory hematology analyzer?
We have not voted yet.
Okay, now on this motion, y'all wanna get some time, a time limit on it I mean, I don't wanna see this go on for 2 or 3 years. I want this done in
Yes, sir.
fast
What-
as possible.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. What I heard Mr. Cannington say was they would expect that cost analysis update to be prepared and returned to you within 3 months, is what I heard. I mean, it's not part of the motion, that's part of the discussion on which you're basing your actions. So I would say there's a 3-month time period on that.
And that's true. And actually, the motion's written here, if you look at each one of them, or the recommendations, the Sacred Heart did not have any kind of timeline. The Alliant Management Services, and Commissioner Jones, you said to reject the current proposal and negotiate.
Right.
And then the new hospital. But the Alliant proposal was that once the board went back to Alliant and told them what services were needed and get a proposal, that would come back to this board
Yep.
by the end of January.
Yep.
And then on the new hospital thing, it's like Mr. Schuler said, that within 3 months, that the hospital board would come back with a recommendation, and it would have these things on here, what's the scope of the project? Is it changing any at all? And what would it be? What is the cost of it today? And then we'll do some pro forma financial statements so that you'll see the impact or projected impact. And then the last thing is, how will we expect to pay for it? We do have the USDA. Hopefully it won't cost any more than it would have 4 years ago, but that would really, really, really surprise me. And so we'll have a part of the proposal from the board will tell you how it's gonna be paid for.
Okay, all right. Now, one more. In this motion, when we gonna know where we gonna hire him?
Do what, sir?
You putting in there, I wanna know about his hiring.
Yeah, they're supposed to report back to us after they start. They'll have to report back to us and us approve it.
I mean,
Is that correct?
60 days.
No.
But
It don't take no 60, 30 days. How long it'll take? They got a hospital board member back there, you and him, how long? Why, it's time to move with this stuff.
I'm sorry, sir. Okay, I mean, you tell me,
He
you
just
want
wants to put
30
a
days?
timeline, it's
I
45
won't-
days
You
ago.
want 30 days? We meet once a month, basically, or we
I
can call a
won't.
special meeting.
I want 2 days. Get it on over. I mean, ain't nobody waiting on 30. That's too much. You steady, it don't take all that. How long it'll take?
Unfortunately, sir, some of our board members are out of town for the Christmas holidays, so if you would allow us to, this time, next month, the second meeting in January, could we use that as a target date?
Yeah, well, okay. Second meeting, yeah.
Another thing, Mike, right now, we're paying way too much money as an intern CEO.
That's-
So that needs to be considered when
Oh,
you're
yes, sir.
coming up with a full-time position and all the perks and all we put in there because he has no severance package.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
Okay, so we'll have everything ready next month.
And our motion now includes the board to consider a permanent position for Mr. Carrington. Is
That was the initial motion.
That's the
and
initial,
3 additional items
yeah.
were added to that, Commissioner.
And we
Bolt.
added others, okay.
Yes, and Chairman, likely I would also just remind the board with some cautionary statement, when we talk about potentially changing the scope of the hospital project, we've always been told in the past that that requires you going all the way back through the application process. So I've asked Mr. Morone to look at that question carefully before they change the scope of the current plans that have been approved, which I think are 6 beds and a bunch of shell rooms or something like that. What you don't want to do is end up in a position where you look at changing the scope and then you got to start back from square one again and go back through all that $750,000 worth of analysis that you've already put into it. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We don't wanna go start all over from the beginning. We wanna move I wanna move forward with what we got, if possible, but I don't want it to go back and start all the way from day one.
Right, that's what I've asked Mr. Morone to check with Shanina at USDA to, you know, if there's some question of changing the scope of the project, you know, what will USDA require us to do as part of changing that scope, or how much flexibility is there? Because I know the board has expressed on a number of occasions that you spend enough money on planning, and as we've heard here today, let's put a shovel in the ground just as soon as you can,
Yeah.
within reason, so.
Same thing about hiring a CEO. I mean, you gonna hire the man today. What you waiting on all this info? That's the way I see it. All right, y'all ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed now.
Okay, thank you. The next item that the hospital board recommended was that the hospital purchase a GE ultrasound system at a cost of $72,270 to be paid for out of the trust fund. The need for ultrasound services for outpatients and ER patients was supported by the medical staff. This will give our ER doctors another diagnostic tool to make definitive diagnoses instead of transporting patients to another facility, which increases costs and travel time for patients and families. The Franklin County Department of Health indicated the need for ultrasound services locally. I think they told me that we had 180 deliveries from Franklin County last year. And then there's some other indications for ultrasound. The radiologists that actually read all of our radiology procedures, including ultrasound, actually looked at the system that the board is proposing, and they agreed with that was what we needed. Also, this item was budgeted at a cost of $68,000, but was enhanced to provide more services. In talking to the medical staff and in talking to some other folks, it looked like there were some things some add-ons that we could put that would allow us to provide more services. So
Is this going to enhance the revenue for the hospital?
it will increase. It will.
Will
enhance
this
revenue.
transfer over to a new facility?
It absolutely will.
Is it state of the art?
It's state of the art.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That carried.
Before he goes on to the next item, there's something that kind of just, I'll say for the board. What we're hoping, commissioners, is that we can, what's the right word? Get back that relationship with the foundation that was lost, where they helped us a lot. They raised money to provide the purchase of some of this equipment.
What foundation was that?
The, Commissioner, help me out.
Okay.
I-
Something
George,
local.
It's a George E. Weems Memorial Hospital Foundation. It's a nonprofit side
Okay.
that generates revenue and then buys equipment or helps to purchase equipment for the hospital at no cost to the county or the taxpayers.
Yes.
Very good.
And they've done a lot in the past. The previous CEO and the president of the foundation, they had a bad relationship, so things stopped. But they bought the last piece of equipment, Mr. Cannington, do you remember what they bought for the hospital? It was before your time, I realize. They,
Well, the foundation was going to purchase an ultrasound machine and had everything all ready to go because they felt like there was a need, and that's what was apparent in the community. But that didn't happen, I think, because of, from what I hear from previous administration,
It was
but
something
there
else
was
that
something in the laboratory,
they purchased.
and I can't remember, I don't know if it's a chemistry analyzer or a coag instrument or what, but it was something in the laboratory.
And what I'm saying all that to say this, commissioners, we're gonna reach out to the foundation, get that started again, see what we can do for fundraisers, and that might help for the cost of some of this equipment that's in front of you today. So you're seeing the numbers, which is the worst case scenario. Hopefully, we can come back to you and say, hey, they said they could pay for maybe the next piece of equipment Mr. Cannington's gonna bring up in front of you. So
Well,
I
now,
just wanted
to
you all to be
clarify, too,
aware of that.
What's written here, both of those were budgeted at amounts, though.
Yes,
That's what's written?
yes.
Okay.
But
But there was really no budget.
it was a
That's why I'm
budget with the
asking. That's why I'm
expected,
asking.
Budgeted amount, but it
Okay.
was no budget.
Okay, that's why I was asking.
it was
So it ain't like it was already
more of a
paid for.
working
in budget.
budget or more of a
Okay.
want list than
Okay.
a wish list. more
Well,
than-
that clarifies.
Yeah.
Because when I read budgeted, I'm thinking it's already in the budget, so.
Yeah, so.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Unless you have a different spending.
Okay. So all right, so was that approved? Hmm? Ultrasound?
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
gotta go to
All right,
the-
the next one is laboratory hematology analyzer. This is something that's required in the board. It's how they measure CBCs, which are complete blood count. So it measures your white cells, your red cells, your platelets, check for anemia, things like that. It's a really critical thing. Our current instrument is about 10 or 11 years old. It still works fine, but we really need a replacement. And this was also budgeted, or was in there for $40,000 as a planning tool. And it's the same thing that we have right now. The only difference is, it's the same. It's a Sysmex. So, all of our technologists are comfortable with it. They think it's the best instrument of what we want to do at the hospital, and it will replace the one that we currently have, and then we'll be able to keep it as a backup in case something happens. It's at a cost of $42,275 and was budgeted for $40,000.
Ready to vote?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Parrish. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, that passes unanimously.
Out of the trust fund, I'm sorry.
Both of them coming out trust fund.
Yes, that's what I want to clarify
Yep.
for the record, for the clerk's purposes, so.
Yes, that's what I understood, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I just want to encourage you to work with those vendors that are supplying these two very well-deserved pieces of equipment. Really work with them to negotiate a hard, good, low price with us. I know you know that.
I will do that. Thank you very much. Okay? Thank you very much. Now I'm going to hit, and this is a report from me on where we are. The first thing is Hurricane Michael. Just to let you know, there was minor damage to the roof of the hospital, but since we did have to evacuate, there was moisture in the facility. We also had some storm water that came through because of the wind and the rain up through one of the doors on the west side of the hospital. And so we had to have an industrial hygienist come in and check the entire facility for mold spores and other things that would keep us from opening the hospital. We got a 100% clean report from them, and then we had to go in. We still had to disinfect these areas and do some minor work in order to move back in. So what I've given to you here is how, once we closed the hospital and got ready to move back in, the Hurricane Michael was on October the 10th. So the following Sunday, on October the 14th, there were no healthcare facilities operating. So we opened the clinic in Apalachicola and also the clinic in Carabel at either noon or 1 o'clock on that Sunday, and stayed open until about 5 o'clock. Then on the following Wednesday, the 17th, we were able to get ACA to approve us to move our emergency room to the Weems West Clinic. Not the best scenario, but we had no bad outcomes. It worked well. Starting at 8 o'clock that morning, we had doctors around the clock, 24/7, and we've had that ever since. We had to close the ER wing, and so it took a little while to get those old plaster walls dried out. Like forever. And so we were not able to open the inpatient wing until Wednesday, November the 7th, and that was in that afternoon, sometime after lunch, and we had 4 patients admitted during the next 24 hours. On December the 3rd, we were able to move back into the emergency room. Hallelujah, everybody was excited. We took since we were displaced, we went ahead and repainted everything, cleaned. I mean, it really looks good. I hope none of you have to be a patient in the ER, but you'll love it if you do happen to go out there. So we're back in the ER as of the December the 3rd. Right now, all patient care areas, including the ancillary departments, lab, x-ray, respiratory, pharmacy, are all permanently located and, with improved efficiency and easy access for patients. And what I mean by that is that the laboratory was down at the end of the West Hall, and now they're in the place where the old central supply was, which is right next to the ER, right next to the inpatient area. It was actually sort of a silver lining for the move, and they're much happier. We've got radiology, we've got all of our ancillary services on what we call the pharmacy wing. So we have pharmacy, we have radiology, we have respiratory therapy, we have lab, and we also have a room that we will be using for wound care as soon as we get that program kicked off, which will be after the first of the year. This is also something that came not as a approval from the medical staff, but saying this is something we need at this hospital. So we are going to start doing wound care, and we're also going to start doing outpatient IV therapy after the first of the year. We would already be doing it except for the hurricane, so I have to say that, okay? The only thing that's, the lobby is back open, everything's full speed ahead. The only thing is that some of our administrative offices are still located in the modular building that was brought in by the insurance company, but we're hoping to be back into the hospital and be able to do away with that by the end of December. Hopefully a whole lot sooner, okay? So that's what happened with that. Now, the impact of Hurricane Michael. Due to services not being available for the entire month, we just couldn't take care of patients. The revenue, and what I'm talking about, gross charges to patients, which is how you measure volume, was under budget by $449,000 or 43% for the month, okay? Net revenue was down $255,000, mostly in the hospital and EMS. And I'm going to divert here, and Mr. Bold, it's what you had mentioned about the critical access hospital. Expenses for the month of October were $7,000 higher than the budget, okay? Revenues were 43% under budget. But a critical access hospital, the big advantage is that we get cost reimbursement, which you take your total costs divided by your total revenue, and Medicare pays their portion of it. And they're about a little over 40% of our business. So instead of us taking a $449,000 hit, we took more of a $255,000 hit. And that's the primary reason for that, okay? Even during this time, cash remained good. We had 37.6 days cash on hand at the end of this month. And I think Jordan and the staff, and all the people that work in the hospital in the financial area have done a good job of managing cash, and having 37.6 days cash on hand at the end of October was good. Now, that compared to 25.4 days at the end of October 2017, okay? We started feeling the impact of reduced revenues in November, because although the revenues were down, by the time you send bills out and you start getting paid by Medicare and Medicaid and your commercial insurers, it takes anywhere from 14 days for Medicare after you get a clean bill to 3 to 4 months for commercial insurance, okay? But we are, having said all of that, because we do have some internal cash reserves, we do, with this, 25 days, 37 days of cash. We don't feel like we're going to have to come to the county and ask for anything from any kind of loan or advance or anything for the trust fund over the next few months. Don't know what the future holds, but I can say if we are able to stick to our budget, do some of the things that we have planned to do, then I think we'll be able to operate with what the county graciously allows, that gives us every month as it is. So thank you very much. I will tell you, I did check yesterday, and as of yesterday, we have 21.3 days cash on hand. And so it is going down, but we have these reserves, so I think we'll be okay. Okay? EMS update. EMS is doing well. We actually have 3 EMS trucks. We have one in Apalachicola, which is currently being stationed over in East Point because their sleep quarters were damaged by the storm, and we're just trying to get to that, but they're operating from over there. So we have Apalachicola, East Point, and Lanark Village. So we have 3 that are doing fine, and then we have 2 backups. So I feel pretty good about that right now. We did have an operational review, and this is something that came, Dr. Conrad, our EMS director, really wanted this done. He wanted his duties and what he checked, as well as the EMS looking at clinical protocols, policies and procedures, and some other things. So that we did have a consultant. It's a guy that used to be a state inspector, and he was here on November the 29th, and we're waiting on his report. The hospital board had also approved this, feeling like this would be a good thing for our EMS service. Weems Medical Clinics, we're at the point now, we've hired a biller to work both clinics, or actually took someone that was taking billing classes, and that's allowing us to improve our revenue cycle in the clinics. But I feel like we have good staff, professional staff, and our office staff, and we are anticipating making operational improvements as we're recovering from the hurricane. One of the improvements, we're updating our charge master because of the charge master review that we completed as a part of the hospital, which was actually paid for by the SHIP grant, which is the Small Hospital Improvement Program. That's a federal program that is administered by each state, and it gives us about $9,500 per year. Okay, Weems West Clinic is approved as a rural health clinic, and we've applied for Weems East. It's been tentatively approved, and we're waiting on the site survey, which hopefully will be it has to be scheduled by the end of January. So once we get that, then hopefully within a couple of months we'll get the approval. But it goes all the way back to when we made the approval. So that should really help us financially, because that makes the rural health clinic also cost-based. Revenue cycle assessment, we're reviewing proposals for revenue cycle operational assessment. And what revenue cycle is that's looking at from the time patients are registered in the hospital to make sure we're getting the proper insurance information, follow-up information, through the coding, through the dropping bills, through insurance follow-up, denial management, those kinds of things, plus turning accounts over for collections. Also will include a review of our charity care policies and indigent care policies to make sure we're doing all of those things right. It will also include the development of benchmarks so that we can monitor performance at each step within the cycle going forward. I think this is very important. I think this is one area where, without doing a lot more work and seeing more patients, we can probably pick up, hopefully, maybe $100,000 a year in additional revenue just by doing things better and making sure that the people that we pay to do things for us on the outside, that they do the job they're supposed to do. The last thing is that the fiscal year 2018 audit, Starting yesterday, our independent auditors were doing their field work, and they'll be here this week. May have to come back, but they will be reviewing all of the account balances. They'll be reviewing all of the transactions, and then they'll issue a final audit and recommendations and management report and all the things that go along with that. The good thing is that this company that the county selected, Carr Riggs Ingram, is a leader in healthcare. They're also going to be doing our cost report as a part of this, so I think this will be a good thing, and that will be presented to you guys or to the county commissioners after we receive it. Now, the thing is, we're trying to get all of this done right now. We have to file a cost report within 150 days from the end of the fiscal year, so that's October, November, December, the end of February. So they have to do the audit and have all of that ready to go, and then you do your cost report, plug those numbers in for your revenues from deduction, and complete the audit. Last thing that's not on here, and I forgot to put it on here, we do have a new CFO. She took over as of November the 1st, I believe it was. Our former CFO took a job down in South Florida. Let me know right before the storm. Worked through I think the first week of November. But the person we hired is Jenny Myrick. She lives in Carabel. She's married to Mark Myrick, and the go ahead. The good thing though is that she's local. You know, this is her hospital. I mean, she's from here. She has a degree in accounting and finance. She's done some audit work, and she's currently working on her master's degree, and she will complete that. I think it's in June of next year. The downside is that she does not have a lot of hospital experience. She doesn't understand revenue cycle management, but we're going to get some help for that, and I will help her since my background is finance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everything I have, unless y'all have questions.
I just wanted to comment, to facilitate everything here. I see TMH as a strong catalyst in supporting many of the subjects that you've mentioned here. I have remembered discussions about the mentoring potential that the TMH Old Pro board can do in mentoring our board. I see a training ground for family practice residency. I think we turn out at least 23 a year there. Also, I see a rich opportunity for the training of medical physicians that are going to medical school right now, especially in the spirit of that medical school, bringing in rural, motivated physicians. And I would just welcome you to consider all of those resources that complement many of the subjects you brought today.
Absolutely will. We will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Next on the agenda will be Miss
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Amy Keller.
two things. One, if the clerk wants to take her 30 seconds now and tell you she has no report, you can do it now and be done.
Okay,
I
go
do
ahead.
not have a report this morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Merry Christmas to you and the staff, Ms. Johnson.
Yeah.
And this, just to do a quick calculation, if you don't ask too many questions, Amy thinks her report's about 15 minutes, mine 10 minutes or so. Michael says his is about 15 minutes. Does the attorney have a long report?
Negative numbers.
Okay, so, you have another 30 minutes or so if things go smoothly. So I say that to you in case you want to take a break and come back, or you want to try and run through it now.
What y'all wanna do?
Let's do this. Let's finish.
Okay.
Keep moving. Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda be Miss Amy. Miss Amy Kelly, planning and zoning report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's see if this is. This morning, we have a few items on the critical shoreline agenda or application. There is a recommendation for approval. It was a unanimous vote. The consideration of a request was to construct a 1,452 square foot single-family dock with, consisting of 333 feet by 4 foot access walkway, a 20 by 6 foot terminal platform, and one 10 by 20 uncovered boat lift. This is located at 1229 Watkins Cove, St. George Island, Florida. Customers have their DEP and Corps permits. Request submitted by Dan Garlick, Garlick Environmental Services, agent for Joe Thompson. And there's a proposed house. Watkins Cove is on the east end of St. George Island, on the bay side. I do not have a site plan showing a house, so we'll have to get that to make sure that they can build at least 1,000 square foot. It appears that they do have room. There are several houses in the area.
It's an acre lot, so they all have.
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey,
Second, but I also have a question.
Okay.
second by
I know,
Commissioner
I know
Jones.
it was unanimous, but was there any issues that come up that maybe was satisfied by that board that we might need to know about? If not,
No,
I'm fine.
they met their riparian right lines
Okay.
on this. We don't have any that doesn't meet their riparian right lines.
Sounds good.
I believe it's 29 on both sides.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That pass unanimous.
Okay, the second item was a recommendation for approval. It was unanimous. Consideration of a request to remove a dilapidated marina and construct a new 7-slip commercial marina within the same configuration as the existing structure. This is located at 500 West Highway 98, Apalachicola, Florida. The customer has their DEP and Corps permitting. The request was submitted by Dan Garlick, Garlick Environmental Services, agent for the Apalachicola Oyster Company. This is located where the Apalachicola Oyster Company is building their new oyster rearing facility. This is Steamers, the old Steamers building, and this is the location here. There is an existing, I'm not sure how banged up it is after Hurricane Michael. There was an existing dock with a covered area at the end and a finger pier at some point. And they're just wanting to go back to the same configuration.
Why is this considered a marina?
This is it's a commercial
Dan,
property.
Come forward.
That was my question too.
Why is this being considered a marina?
Fits within the ordinance of the land development regulations for the county.
I
It's
mean,
a multifamily facility, but it's also commercial, and that's why it's referred as a marina.
okay, I thought you had to have 10 slips classified you as a marina.
There's no distinction.
Okay.
Slips gets you into some DEP review, doesn't it?
No, they review everything, especially if it's commercial. They don't care if it's 1 slip or no slips or 100 slips.
There is an
Years
issue.
ago, years and years
There
ago,
is
if
an
you had 10
issue.
slips or more, then DEP monitored some water quality issues associated with shellfish harvesting.
There's a determination, that's why I'm asking this.
But I haven't looked at the details in a long time, but it was 10 slips or more, what used to be the threshold.
Yeah, and I don't wanna get into a precedent-setting thing here of approving a 3-slip marina or a 5-slip marina. I always thought it was, if you had more than 9 slips, then it was classified as a marina.
Commissioner Parrish, Mr. Chairman, if I may, if you have questions, then my recommendation to the board is let's table this matter, then with the board's permission, I'll look at this in conjunction with Commissioner Parrish.
I mean, I know where the facility's at, and I understand there was a dock there, but it's, I don't know anything about it being classified as a marina.
Yeah. The
It's news to me too.
10 slip thing might be, are you looking at that from the closure issue?
That's how it was, that's how it came up before.
That's how they determine a marina, is what I understood.
No. Well, DP looks at.
A marina entails a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Or can entail a
And
bunch of
it's
stuff.
usually income producing, but even You can even have an owner-oriented marina, which is basically several slips that are owned by individual owners that you pay no lease, but they still call it a marina. So anytime that you get over 2 slips, that's when it goes from being a residential marina to a multi-residential boat dock to a marina. After 3 slips and above with DP that's essentially what it is. I believe it's the same thing in the LDRs for the county. And I don't think that's changed as long as I've been here. And so there are some thresholds for DEP where they charge more fees for over 10. You end up doing water quality studies, you end up doing sediment studies and things like that. Depends to what degree you're disturbing the bottom where you're dredging or not, things like that. But he's on that point there, anything above 3 slips and above is considered to be a marina. I don't think there's a distinction. I know of none.
Well, Dan, why don't you just call this a commercial dock facility? Why do you keep calling it multifamily? It's not zoned multifamily.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, you mentioned.
No, I'm
residential
not
and
calling this,
multifamily.
I'm saying there are categories of facilities that go from a single-family dock, which you can have 2 slips or less, to multi-residential docks, which can be for multi-residential use. Normally, those are ownership oriented, where you don't pay a lease. Then you have commercial projects where you have open to the public or commercial facilities. Anything from 3 and above, they're all marinas, and they are treated as such. It's just that the threshold for doing certain studies when you're when you're gonna do a marina, there's that cutoff about 10, because they feel that there's a possibility of impacts greater than 10. Of course, in Franklin County, Apalachicola, any place around here, you're gonna have, that 10 is real important, because then you have to start thinking about shellfish closures and things like that. This one was actually, you might remember this one, there's a guy named Captain Nemo. He had 25 slips out here and he built it. What is left out there now is the remnants of that. This one is actually smaller than that because the upland owner does not need those 25 slips. And that's why we're at 7 with a loading facility at the base of it. That's really that's the thing that's different from this one. But still, whatever you do above 3 slips is considered to be a marina.
Praise of the board, I guess.
So is he gonna rent these slips out?
No,
So why is it commercial?
because it's in a commercial district.
It's commercially zoned property.
Yeah.
I understand that.
It's a seafood-oriented facility, and it's in a commercial district, and therefore, that's why it's a commercial marina. But he's keeping these for his folks that will have their boats there. He's not gonna be renting these out. In so doing, he is not open to the public, and it's gonna cost him more money for his lease, for leasing the submerged area, but they're gonna be exclusive for his use.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Master. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
The third item on the agenda is a recommendation for approval unanimous. It's consideration of a request to construct a 1,356 square foot single-family dock consisting of 300-foot by 4-foot access walkway with a 26 by 6-foot terminal platform and 2 12 by 20 uncovered boat lifts located at 1470 Alligator Drive, Alligator Point, Franklin County, Florida. Customer has their DEP and core permitting. Request submitted by Dan Garlick, Garlick Environmental Services, agent for Christopher Register.
Praise of the board.
Yeah.
And they do have a proposed house on the property.
Amy, can I ask a question?
Okay.
And it might have something to do with something we don't know about, that's why I'm asking. Given the angle that some of the other docks are already going, Dan, maybe this is something you know about, why is this going at such an angle to the left? I'm just saying that, we don't know, 5 houses down, that guy ever decides to try to build a dock, there's no way he's gonna be repairing right lines with this angle. Does that have something to do with seagrass or something we don't know about, or
It goes with the dock that's built to the east. The thing is building it in error.
is what now?
He built it in error. If you were to run riparian lines in the dock to the east,
Yeah.
that dock is encroaching over the riparian line.
Okay.
Simple as that.
So the guy that's his neighbor is stuck either which way, it'll always be in his riparian line.
Yeah, I mean, the dock to that side, I mean, there's no problem with the.
No, I'm talking about going back to the
That guy,
left.
yeah, and I mean, if
His
they do
his
something in the
angle,
future,
okay.
might have a different problem, but,
The guy going left might be parallel to the dock line.
yeah, we're good from going to the west, they'll be good from here on
Good
out.
training to this one. Sometime. I'm talking about if you look all the way down,
Sure.
there's a dock almost on the property line between these two houses, all the way to the left. If that guy ever tries to build a house, if there's docks put everywhere, there's no way he'll ever meet riparian lines for the house.
They'll,
With the present angle that's taken here, because the other one's gonna have to follow that.
sure. And then the issue is that basically you're supposed to follow a riparian line out. That's the rule of how it's supposed to be, and that's how
Right.
deep he looks at it. There, you know, if somebody wants to go back and have a fight about docks that have been already built in the future, if they try to rebuild that, that's the time when you need to think about that
Okay.
one.
There's two of them up there crooked.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, but
I've seen
now-
some good ones, let me
Yeah.
tell you.
Now you're required to show the riparian lot line, where before you weren't, so they're trying to
What-
address that issue.
Okay.
You always have had for the DEP, but Franklin County, I don't even know when we started, but
think it was
recently we
in
got more
04.
serious because of more recent events where there's just more docks out there.
Okay, well, I know my questions might not always make sense, but I do have questions.
I'll try to answer if I can.
Pleasure to vote on that.
So moved.
Second,
Got a motion approved by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Okay. The fourth item is a recommendation for approval. It was a 6-1 vote. This consideration was a request to construct a 1,056 square foot single-family dock consisting of 224 foot by 4 foot access walkway with a 16 by 16 terminal platform and two 12 by 20 uncovered boat lifts. Located at 701 Buck Street, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. Customer has their DEP and their core permitting. Request submitted by Dan Garlick, Garlick Environmental Services for Kenneth Bowman. They do have a proposed house. This is at the location where they had to have a variance on Buck Street, and that was approved back early October, I believe. I'd have to look at the date, but they did get a variance to construct a house.
motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Massey. Any discussion?
Okay, number 5.
Wait a minute, all in favor?
I'm sorry.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimous.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Number 5, there's a recommendation for approval. This was unanimous, but it was contingent upon providing a site plan showing the property can accommodate a house. They did submit the site plan, and the house square footage is, as proposed, is 1,714 square feet. So there's enough room to build at minimum 1,000. Consideration was a request to construct a 1,432 square foot single-family dock consisting of 318 by 4 foot access walkway, a 20 by 6 foot terminal platform, and two 12 by 20 uncovered boat lifts located at 2031 Turpentine Trail, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. The customer has their DEP and core permitting. Request submitted by Garlic Environmental Services, agent for Billy Schultz, Island Palms, St. George Island, and they do have a proposed house. And this is within the plantation.
Amy,
Mhm.
just so I didn't mishear, did you say they were covered boat lifts or uncovered?
Uncovered.
Okay. I might have misheard. I do that frequently. Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Okay. Number 6 is a recommendation for approval, unanimous contingent upon providing a site plan showing that the property can accommodate a house, and they did submit that. Consideration of a request to construct a 1,036 square foot, single-family dock consisting of 229 foot by 4 foot access walkway with a 6 by 20 foot terminal platform and one 12 by 20 uncovered boat lift located at 1544 Alligator Drive, Alligator Point, Franklin County, Florida. Customer has their DEP and core permitting. Request submitted by Dan Garlick, Garlick Environmental Services, agent for Robert Kirby, and they do have a proposed house.
So moved.
I second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Masters, second by Commissioner Burke. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimous.
Okay, we are now doing sketch plat approvals. We have a sketch plat that was recommended approval. It was a unanimous vote. Consideration of a request for a sketch plat approval for a one-unit subdivision called Leisure Landing. It's a 3-acre parcel, also known as lots 19, 20, and 21, Schooners Landing, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Barbara Sanders, Sanders and Duncan, PA, agent for Leisure Landing. This is three subdivided lots, and they're wanting to combine it into one unit, a one-lot subdivision.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Parrish. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimous.
Okay. We have a final sketch plat approval. It was recommendation for approval, unanimous. Consideration of a request for a final plat approval for Resort Village 3, converting existing lots into common areas. Request submitted by Barbara Sanders, agent for St. George Island Plantation Homeowners Association. They're the applicant. What they're doing is they're taking multiple lots and turning them into common space. All of the area in blue, that's where it's located, and all of the I'll go to the red. All of this area highlighted in red is the areas that they're wanting to do common areas.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Parrish. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That carries unanimous.
Okay, we have a recommendation for approval. It was unanimous. Consideration of a request for final plat approval of a 1.9 acre parcel, also known as Tract 10, Phase 2, East End Beaches, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Barbara Sanders, Sanders and Duncan, agent for multiple owners. What it is this is the Tract 10 of the East End, and the common area as it exists is in red. And the same owner that owns this lot owns this lot on the Gulf, and they're wanting to swap the common areas around. So this is what is existing now, and this is what in the blue here will be the common area, so that the owner of this lot and this lot has access adjoining each other. And this would be a final plat.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones,
Second.
second by Commissioner Parrish. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Yes, ma'am, y'all have a Merry
Don't get too cold in New York.
Oh, I plan to.
Christmas. Okay, next on the agenda will be Mr. Allen Peters.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. Yesterday, I did a deposition where I was advised to talk slowly, but I'm not under that same warning by the attorneys.
Position anymore.
Right, so the first item is fairly lengthy, but it's also straightforward, so I'm going to read it at a nice, rapid pace. So, Board update on Alligator Drive. I attended the December 8th PTA, or should be 8th PTA, Alligator Point Taxpayer Association meeting, and I provided the following information. In response to Franklin County's request for assistance and the Alligator Point property owners, the state of Florida has engaged Mr. Frank C. McComb of FCMC Consulting to provide guidance and leadership to an integrated recovery group, now I'll refer to it as IRG, to develop a comprehensive solution for Alligator Drive. Mr. McComb is under contract to the state at no expense to the county. And I believe this proposal presented by the state to us is that of all the problems we've been having down there. So this is a response to our continuing complaints for state assistance. That's how this came about. Mr. McComb has experience in the county as he was one of the state representatives during the East Point fire. On Wednesday, December 5th, I met Mr. McComb and 12 representatives of various state and federal agencies on Alligator Point as a kickoff meeting for this IRG. Commissioner Bolt joined us, and together we provide the attendees with a history of the road and the makeup of the community that uses the road. Mr. McComb will be responsible for coordinating meetings and information with all the governmental agencies, and he will also create a communication link to the Alligator Point community so that he can keep the community informed. Commissioner Bolt stated that the preferred goal is for the state to take back ownership of the road. Mr. McComb said he understood that was the preferred goal, but his direction from the state was to assist the county in repairing and protecting the road. So I want to stop there and just let you know that we tried all we could. Commissioner Bolt was very emphatic that the best route for the county was to have the state come in there and take ownership, and there was really no positive response from Mr. McComb. He said that's fine, but that's not what his charge is, and he was not pursuing that because that's all he was paid to do. And maybe there'll be a secondary charge from somebody on that issue of getting the state involved and taking ownership, but that's not what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. The group spent a total of about 4 hours on the point, and we walked various segments of the road to get a sense of the problem. Mr. McComb was aware we need assistance in maintaining the road where it is, which would be called emergency repair work, which is what I talked about this morning when Howard was here, while a permanent solution is developed. Mr. McComb wants to make sure everyone understands that Hurricane Michael did so much damage to the road that from a response viewpoint, we are essentially starting all over again. At this time, there are no shortcuts or quick solutions, so the community needs to be aware that there will be more months and months of driving on the existing road. The consensus of the IRG is that the road needs to be relocated in the manner as the county has already started. Relocating the road north will provide additional buffer as well as space to create some additional protection from storm surge and wave action. Relocating the road north also reduces some of the hurdles the county is currently facing trying to rebuild a road that is currently on the beach. The state of Florida has very strong rules against building permanent roads in such locations as where the washout is. So for public safety and environmental reasons, the road needs to be moved north. The relocation will require the acquisition of all the lots on the north side of Alligator Drive from Tom Roberts going east about 1,500, 2,000 feet east. I say again, the acquisition of all the lots on the north side of Alligator Drive from Tom Roberts going east for 1,500 to 2,000 feet. That's between 15 and 20 lots because they're each 100 feet wide. The lots on the south side should be acquired in the same area, but the road is moving north, and the lots on the south side are of value mainly to remove them from the threat of continued hurricane damage. There will also be an acquisition of lots in the Chip Morrison area, which is on the west end, but that specific need has not yet been developed. I advise everyone at this meeting, the December 8th APTA meeting, that this is a voluntary acquisition process. The offers made to the property owners will be based upon market value, but the IRG is not going to initiate any condemnation proceedings. If a property owner does not want to sell, it is going to slow down the redevelopment of the road and of the point itself. There is no way to avoid the impact the road relocation is going to have on the lots on the north side of the Alligator Drive and the people that own them. I understand this, the IRG understands this, and I know the Alligator Point community understands this. This is a tough message to give, but if the Alligator Point community wants a safe, protected road, then it has to be moved. For once, the state of Florida is providing the resources for this to happen, and I encourage everyone to take advantage of this offer. At some point in the near future, Mr. McComb and his group will be in contact with APTA leadership about making some sort of website where he would post information related to the project. I did talk to the staff on Monday, December 10th, and they are planning to holding a community workshop on Alligator Point sometime in early January. They will work with the county and APTA on the schedule for the meeting. And additionally, I say that Mr. McComb has taken over the responsibility for the acquisitions. The money is coming from the state of Florida. There is federal money and state money, and Mr. McComb is managing that both on behalf of the county to acquire the lots. So at this point, there is no out-of-pocket expenses to the county. As we get closer to acquisitions, we'll make sure that the title is delivered to the county in the manner necessary and required by the county attorney. But we haven't gotten to that point yet. Mr. McComb will be the one, though, right now, getting the appraisals and making the offers and seeing who's interested in selling and who's not.
Alan, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I thought they had made a proposal to secede from the union.
Well, they didn't quite go that
They want
far.
colors to take them
but they
over,
went
so
over-
are we
they-
wasting our time here? Trying
Well-
to provide the infrastructure and trying to provide a mechanism to rebuild this road if Wakulla's gonna take it over?
Well, first of all, that takes a legislative action for which I don't know there's any basis for that to happen. But if it is, then we will sell this road to Wakulla County.
Sell it to them.
I say that. I mean, Wakulla County, there's a long process, and yes, they did make a motion after I left the meeting. Commissioner Bolt may have more information than I have about looking into the opportunity of Wakulla County, the Alligator Point, some section
The road's
undefined.
still gonna be washed out.
I'm aware of that.
It
And
don't
so-
matter which county's got it, it's just a messed up road.
And so between me and you, if Wakulla County wants it, I'm
But
here
I
to
don't wanna
encourage you
beat
to
our
have
head
it.
against the
Get
wall if they wanna secede from the union, you see what
I
I'm saying?
understand.
We
I
just,
got a question.
we just waving our hands in the air if that's what they wanna do.
If Wakulla County wants the road, why do they want out of it?
Wakulla County, well, I'm not speaking for Wakulla County what they want. I did talk to them informally, and they were like, what's going on over there?
I mean, it's as great as they take a road in that's demolished and,
Well, no, they would take all the land associated with the road and the tax base.
that's what I was saying.
And Commissioner Bolt will be out of seat.
He would be out of a seat. Wakulla, the thing that is known to me is that Wakulla County has a higher millage rate than Franklin County.
Yep.
Wakulla County imposes impact fees and assessments on private property improvements that we haven't yet done. So the very two things that the Alligator Point community is trying to avoid, they're gonna run right into. But if that's what they wanna do, and the legislature approves it,
Okay.
that's.
I just had to throw that out there.
I understand
I'll
that
ask him
Mr. Representative Bashirs had made a motion, had suggested to the Alligator Point community that he would make a motion, he would introduce a bill in the legislature for that to happen, but he so happens isn't gonna be in the legislature anymore.
But you'd have to redraw the district lines, you'd have to
redraw
redraw
everything.
the county boundary lines.
Yes, sir.
There'd be a lot in there to succeed from the union.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
And I'll add that I believe this was an emotional passion from one individual that proposed this motion. This motion was simply to research only, look into what the aspects are of such a seceding from the union. It was, in my opinion, mal-timed. We gained a huge amount of traction a couple weeks ago with this interagency disciplined meeting that we had relative to this road repair. For the first time in 20 years, we've got the great amount of traction to get moving on this. So now we have the momentum that I think the passion of the people of Alligator Point, Ball Point want. It's there. And, you know, you've got me now as a new commissioner and a new thinking and a new direction with a pulse, connected, actively engaged for the people there in my district. And I think those two traction items will probably let the research be research, and you hopefully won't hear much about this anymore.
Thank God.
Need a bridge.
We'll see where we end up. Anyway, so that's my report on Alligator Point. On to the next item, update on Triumph meeting. I attended the Triumph meeting in Defuniak Springs on Friday, December 7th for Harbor Day. I was prepared to learn what the Triumph Board was going to do for the Hurricane Michael counties in relation to the loss of tax base caused by the hurricane, but the meeting was consumed by lengthy discussions of several projects that had been lingering under Triumph review. One of those projects was the FSU developed proposal for the Apalachicola Bay, renamed the Apalachicola Bay System Initiative, or ABSI. The Triumph Board agreed to move the project to the next step of approval, which was the development of a term sheet. And the term sheet is a document that spells out the goals FSU must reach in order to secure Triumph funding. The goals are not discussed, so I cannot provide the board any indication of what they are except for one. One of the targets will be to, and this is from FSU, will be to test the varieties of naturally occurring oysters to see if any other variety might grow more successfully in the saltier water that is currently for the norm in the Apalachicola Bay. As the board is aware, the lack of fresh water is one of the critical factors harming the bay, so it's possible there may be another variety of oysters that can be more successful in the kind of water we have. And I am sure more information will be forthcoming from FSU because they have to create this term sheet, which will be a public document that then the Triumph Board has to agree to.
Is they gonna put anybody to work?
Commissioner, there's another component to it, which is a oyster hatchery. They're gonna produce an oyster hatchery. I can't tell you what production level it'll be at, therefore I can't tell you how many people will be employed by it, but there is this production hatchery that doesn't exist now, so somebody's gonna have to work there.
Well, you know, they coming in here getting all these studies and stuff. They ain't putting, the local people ain't getting nothing out of it.
Commissioner, I agree, but I don't know what to tell you. This was something that,
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
with the term sheet though, they're gonna have to, unless I'm misunderstanding, they'll be told what they have to do, because part of it is, with Triumph money has to be job production.
I would think so. This was, I will tell you, Mr. Jones, that this was a sort of an odd conversation because previously, one of the hurdles that this Alligator Point, Apalachicola Bay Initiative could not overcome was the job creation. Member Schoaf on the board had told us in various settings that he didn't want to move forward with an Apalachicola Bay oyster harvesting initiative unless there were jobs created, unless there was some way of making sure that productivity was going to go up in the bay. That wasn't broadly discussed on this meeting. I won't say it isn't going to come back up on the back end, but the first step forward was to get FSU to agree to something was what they were focused
Well,
on.
that's what the economist said too.
Yeah.
You gotta produce jobs.
Yeah.
What they're gonna do is, just the way the crow flies, they, about 9 miles where they're growing oysters, it grows in salt water, that's gonna be their next solution.
I'm not saying, yeah.
I ain't gonna say that, but that's gonna be the next step, because that's only.
Right. So, we'll see where it comes out. The other thing, and I don't want to take this fun from the school board, so maybe it won't be, I won't say it too loudly, is the school board's project got approved also. So the school board got, they went to the next step beyond term sheet with the Triumph Board about their project for improving educational opportunities and certificates and all that kind of stuff. So,
Well, that's good.
yeah. And the school board, I'm sure, will have more information than I have. Okay, item number 3, and this doesn't have all the information associated which it needs to have, but I'm going to bring it up now anyway. Michael Marone has received a request from the Health Department for the board to grant a waiver from county regulations on the distance between a well and a septic tank for lots damaged by Hurricane Michael. The request is attached, as you can see, it's sort of in the form of a resolution. If I can find it there, or a variance request, I'm sorry, a variance request. I will say a normal variances go to the Board of Adjustment, not to you all, so we're not really in the right format, but it came to you all, so we can talk about it. The draft document was created by the Health Department, does not cite the appropriate county ordinance, but the ordinance involved is 79-8, and I attached a copy of ordinance 79-8. Okay. The issue to be resolved is whether the county still wants to enforce the requirement that a well and septic tank be at least 100 feet apart, as required in Section 3 of Ordinance 79-8. The setback for all the other water bodies listed in Ordinance 79-8 is regulated by the Critical Shoreline Ordinance, which is Ordinance 87-1. But the Critical Shoreline Ordinance does not mention wells. So Ordinance 79-8 has been the controlling document for all these years for the distance between wells and septic tanks. Your planning staff does not support a waiver in the manner requested by the Health Department because it creates a double standard for lots. Essentially, you're saying, okay, if you're damaged by a hurricane, you get to have a smaller distance between a well and septic tank, but if you weren't, you got to have the 100 feet. So our position is either do one or the other, but don't try and just do a waiver for some of these lots. So your planning staff recommends either keep the 100-foot in effect for all lots or get rid of the requirement for all lots and allow the existing state regulations currently in effect throughout Florida to be effective here in Franklin County. The state requires the distance between a well and on-site sewage disposal to be 75 feet with new installations, and for lots that were created before 1983, the setback is 50 feet. And somebody from the Health Department is here. So what we don't have, what I didn't have the time I wrote this, is a listing of where these lots are affected. And mostly, if I read this right, have been documented on Dog Island. That's the issue, is Dog Island, the erosion on Dog Island. There may be some issues on lots on Highway 98, although the number of lots isn't listed here. But essentially, they have gone up to Dog Island and have sort of done their assessment on Dog Island. I haven't had time to talk throughout this with the attorney, and the attorney hadn't talked to you all about where we stand on this. So it's open for discussion.
Come on, folks.
Come on up, sir.
Yes, I'm Brad Addison with the Health Department, and just to clarify, for the state requirements for new systems between the wells is 75 feet regardless of the year, but for repairs, we're allowed to go to these lesser numbers, so say 50 feet for the ones that were platted or built before, were installed before 1983. After that, we still go with the 75-foot requirement. If they can't meet these state requirements, then they have to go to our group to get a variance to go be, to a lesser amount, for the distance between the septic system and the, well, the private drinking water well.
Can I ask a
Any
question?
questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, yes.
Is there any studies been done that this water that's within 50 feet of an on-site disposal, is that stuff safe to drink? And who's reliable, who is responsible for that? Because right now, we require 100 foot, and I understand the dilemma that we're in, you want to move that back to 50 foot, which is what the state requires. So if the county goes back and allows them to put a drinking water well 50 feet from an on-site disposal system, and somebody gets sick with cholera or whatever,
Yes, sir.
is the state responsible for that? Or is this county gonna be responsible for that?
I'm just.
I'm just
enforcing-
asking
I
you a
understand what you're
question.
saying, and I can't say.
You know,
how
we're
to-
both
Yes, sir.
worried about health, safety, and welfare,
Yes, sir.
okay?
I understand
That's
exactly
your
what you're
charge and
saying.
our charge.
And
But I
all-
wanna know before we waver from this rule, who's gonna be responsible? Because we're on record as having 100-foot separation. Now we're gonna go to 50 at the state's recommendation, and if somebody takes sick, who's gonna be responsible? That's my only question.
All I can say is it's the state regulations. I'm not sure at what process they went through to come up with these numbers. But in the other counties, say Gulf County, our adjacent county, or some of the adjacent counties, they're just going with the state requirements.
Okay.
So,
you're not assuming responsibility or
Well, I'm just saying,
liability.
I'm not personally, but I'm just saying, we're just following the
I
state
don't,
requirements.
this board and the county
No.
government don't want it neither.
Well, I understand that, and I understand what you're saying.
Okay,
and,
I'll leave it
I
up
do
to the
have.
board. All this is on record, so if it
Yes,
comes
sir.
back up,
Yes, sir.
this
So
will
basically, what
this
you,
will show that I
So
asked
it-
this question.
so if you decided to go with the state requirements, then you're just relying on the state.
And these people are
Administrative-
relying on the
administrative
state
code.
that have safe drinking water. That's all I'm saying. I'm
I
not trying to be adversarial. I'm
No,
just-
I absolutely understand, and you.
I don't
and
want to be
understand-
drinking no water 50 feet from no septic tank, I can tell you.
I understand that too, sir.
I wouldn't build on a lot like that and put
Yes.
my family, subject my family to drinking that kind of water 50 feet.
Yes, sir.
No, that ain't gonna happen, but it's up to the board.
So it's basically, I guess the way it was presented, either continue to do the 100-foot setback, and then we'd have to come, the homeowners would have to come to the board for whomever, how
And
this
they would have
process
to
works.
assume the
Would they have to come
liability,
back ask for a variance to come back with a smaller amount? So I think part of this was just to avoid having a lot of variances coming to the board to
I
deal with
understand.
these repairs. That's why we sort of came this direction. We would still try to enforce the 100-foot requirement. If they couldn't make it, then we would implement the state requirement. So it's, of course, we do enforce the county's ordinances that may be more stringent than the state, and that's fine.
And that's because we
Yes.
try to protect our environment, and our
That's
water
right.
bodies and all these other.
That's right.
Attorney, you got a comment on this?
Yes, the list that was generated, I think probably was at my request, because when I was made aware of the request for a variance from the state, or by the state to our local county ordinances, my question was, well, what is the scope of the problem? Exactly what properties are affected? Because the county commission needs specific information before you can make a determination whether there's a sufficient public reason to go in and adopt an ordinance voiding an environmental standard that's been in place for almost 40 years. I was just presented with this list a few minutes ago, and frankly, it's not very specific. So my recommendation, I'm still not satisfied that we know exactly what the scope of the problem is. I see there are 2, 4, 6, 7 addresses, and then some other references vaguely to other areas that may be affected. So I think we either need a specific list from the state so the board can decide whether you think there's a sufficient public problem, or just wait and take variance requests on a case-by-case basis and leave your current ordinance in.
I ask Alan, you still gotta be 75 feet from the water's edge.
Yes.
With
yes,
any kind of
yes,
disposal
yes,
system.
Yes, yes.
So if these lots are eroded away and they can't meet that 75 feet, I don't see how they're gonna meet the,
Well, Commissioner, I'm with you, because I wonder whether, I understand the state has gone out there, there may be other issues on some of these lots where the people never do build back. So we may be trying to give them a relief for something that they don't want because of other issues, insurance, you know, what other issue has occurred in their life that says, oh, I'm not gonna build back on that property.
Some of these lots is eroded away, and then you gotta be so many feet off the highway with setbacks and everything
Right,
else.
right.
They may not be nothing there to build on, to
That's
put a
my
well
point.
on
That's
or
my-
a septic tank on.
That's exactly my point. So maybe we should just wait for this case by case and deal with it, because some of these things may go away anyway.
Well, and also keep in mind that back in the seventies, when, you know, Franklin County was first, I guess, under the spotlight for development, the county commission at that time developed a whole series of ordinances that were all designed to limit and control density of development in the county. And that's one way that I view this 100-foot setback. It's just one of the tools in your toolbox for controlling the density of development in Franklin County and protecting the environment and the water quality, in addition to the public health issues that were mentioned by Commissioner Parrish earlier. So,
I mean,
I think at this
it's
point
up
it's
to
just
the board,
premature.
because right now we having trouble getting a quorum on the Board of Adjustments to get a variance.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother issue that has nothing to do with the young fella at the podium, but I'm just saying, it's up to the board.
May
I don't know what the rest of the.
May I say one other thing, sir, if I may?
Yeah.
Another thing is, so you've got this ordinance that was passed at 100 feet, but then you have a lot of lots, to say Lanark Village and some other areas that were platted back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, and the lot sizes weren't necessarily to accommodate a well and a septic system at 100 feet. So that does create a little bit of an issue that we try to work around, say in Lanark Village, and then you get into the Dog Island or along the coastal area where you have the erosion. So that's, you know, Lanark Village, sorry, is another area where the 100-foot becomes a little tricky.
It does, although, you know, I've been here 30 years,
Yes,
you know, and usually it's been resolved one of two ways. The Lanark Village Sewer and Water ends up providing water to those lots, so a well is not necessary. Sometimes there've been combined wells, sometimes a well has been on someone else's property, and they've worked things out. So, I mean, I realize it creates difficulty, but we're trying to do this in behalf of protection of, you know, health and safety and water quality.
But doesn't Carabel now provide water and sewer to Lanark?
Yeah, but there might be isolated places where there's not quite water
Okay.
yet. But yes, that's why most of the problems have gone away in Lanark, because
got
water
you.
is now available.
And we're talking about septic tank here. Isn't the more modern approach now these new aerobic systems?
Yeah, but our distinction is well and on-site sewage disposal. So we didn't make a distinction between a septic tank and a aerobic system or an engineered system. We just said 100 feet between,
Yeah.
you know, water, your source of water and your effluent.
I think this is important, this 100-foot margin. It's from a density standpoint, it impacts our overall development, the way we want to look, both now and in the future. And I believe some of the pressure we have in the state of Florida is due to this high-density population way south of us. It's not us.
Well, you got the cesspool coming one way and then the salt water coming one way, and you gonna drink that?
Well, that was another question I had for Alan on this issue was if you're gonna put it within 50 feet, why would you not use an aerobic, which is not put into a drain field, is that correct?
No, so
Or
is
it
drain
is put
field.
into a drain
Yeah, so
field.
is drain field. That's
So
the issue.
that's no help.
Well, it does deal with some of the nitrogen
Right,
issues.
right.
Say if you have small baby, little infants, where you have the nitrogen issues, it does help with that, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, on the flip side of the coin, I guess since we have a more stringent rule than the state does, we're assuming the liability of that, I guess.
We're preventing that because we got double.
Well, if somebody gets sick, they can still look to us because we're requiring more than they are. But either
Well, you're
which
being
way,
more
I'm good with the staff recommendation, which is they're not wanting to do away with it or make variances just for a select few for a time because of confusion it's gonna bring. So I'm good with making a motion to keep our 100-foot and we'll just deal with it as it comes.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones,
I second.
second by Commissioner Burke. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Okay, we'll just deal with it.
Sign it, at your own risk.
Last time it was very simple, board action, or not board action, provide board with a copy of the FDOT letters saying the improvements for Island View Park that were built in the US 98 right-of-way have been accepted by the state. You've got a copy of the letters in your files. This involves the turn lanes and drainage on the US 98 that unfortunately for us were not impacted or damaged by the storm. So everything that was built for the state is still good. Everything that was built for the county is not good. But we'll work through those processes as we can.
All right.
And I'm available for any questions if you have any. Otherwise, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, thank you.
Next on the agenda will be Mr. Michael Marone, County Coordinator.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. First thing I need to clarify, it's Anderson Columbia Incorporated that has the Highway 98 project. Anderson Construction, Commissioner Parrish is the company that's doing Lombardi's, So I just need to clarify that. But I'll get more information for the board in reference to the Highway 98 project. Item number 1, board action to authorize the chairman's signature on what should be the final change order for the county's road paving project. This is a $3,855.57 deductive, meaning a refund to the county, change order that reduces the final amount to $391,930.94. Currently, there's a balance of a little less than $1 million in the road paving account, and the county usually waits until there's a minimum of $1 million in that account before starting a new paving project. With the anticipation of fiscal years 2018, 2019 gas tax proceeds, the board should be ready to start a new paving project around the fall-winter season of 2019. Board action to approve the deductive change order, which effectively closes out your current paving project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Parrish. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimous.
Item number 2, Commissioners, recently, staff received a complaint that the county's website was not ADA compliant for anyone with sight disability. Our website should be designed to allow anyone with this disability to turn on a screen reader, which would allow them to understand the pages and documents on our website by voice. Ms. Whitney Barfield has been working with Ms. Jalen Boone of 2K Web Group, the county's web designer, to rectify this issue. 2K Web Group has submitted a proposal to scan all 1,511 pages and documents on our website to check for accessibility compliance. Once the scan is complete, 2K Web Group will produce a report stating what on the website is out of compliance and provide a robust accessibility policy for the website. The policy will state something to the effect that all documents from 2019 forward will meet the ADA compliance rules, and documents prior to 2019 will be converted by request. The cost to perform this service will be $1,800. The cost of the software and training to convert all documents prior to 2019 and in the future is $579.88. Board action to authorize 2K Web Group to perform the scan of the website and produce the out-of-compliance report and the purchase of the software along with the necessary training.
Pleasure of the
Motion to
board.
approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Parrish.
Discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, discussion.
I need
Yeah.
clarification. The documents 2019 going backwards in time, those are going to be converted and be screen reader compliant
By
under this
request.
motion?
Yes.
No, not by request. That's not what we need to chat about that, do we?
Yeah, because the problem is there'll be we need to see the report, but, to be honest with you, that will take a time to convert every single document in the past to, if that's what needs to be done, then I'll bring that back to the board at the
Yeah,
next
let's,
meeting.
my recommendation, let's move forward proactively with this first step, but I think there's going to have to be a second step that we can look at once the report is complete. But I think the board should be prepared that in order to have the website be compliant with the ADA, all the documents, I mean, it's
How far
sort of like
back
being
does that
pregnant.
go?
You're not sort of pregnant, you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. You're either compliant or you're not in compliance.
How far back do you have to go to meet ADA compliant?
As
Is
The
there-
entire
is
website
there
is what I think
all
we're going to find
Back to the
out.
1800s, or?
Whatever's on the website.
I mean, is there
I
a
don't know
date
what's on the
there that you
website.
would, is there a date there that law
All
was
minutes-
passed and therefore you would have to do this, or what?
all minutes and documents that are on the website currently, we will have to convert, every single
Yeah.
one.
But isn't that included in the number 1,511?
That's part of the scan, yes, sir.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking, the number of pages is 1,511.
I thought that
Yeah.
was saying pages and documents, in other words. They didn't
That's
make a
what's available on
distinction.
the website.
I think that, and I'm sorry, I think that, I'll verify, I think the 1,500 is pages, I think documents are separate to that, but I'll verify and see. Well, it has to be both, we don't have.
Yeah, I don't.
Now, don't forget now, we're covering like road department, they have a website, you know, Parks and Rec, they all have so I'm, you know, so, but I'll verify that for the board.
It's just a very fertile area of litigation statewide. I believe I provided to the board a couple of meetings back, a list of current litigation statewide
Yeah.
on this issue of our public websites ADA compliant or not. The case law is extremely clear that if you have a website, it must be ADA compliant. In terms of the cost of making our website 100% compliant, I think that's something that you should ask our consultant to find out what the scope of that problem is. But more than likely, it would be less than whatever the cost of the potential litigation could be. So I'm just suggesting move forward with this motion as it's been presented as a step one. Let's additionally authorize Mr. Morone to get a scope or a cost estimate to make the entire website 100% ADA compliant, and then move forward from there. And I don't think I can get with Mr. Morone on that second step. I don't, unless the board wants to. You don't necessarily have to amend the motion in the second, but I do want the board to be aware. I think that's where we're headed.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
We already made a motion and say.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't even know what we're voting for now. I mean, it's
We're
either
voting for what his
ADA compliant or
recommendation
it's not,
Well,
you know.
it got to be all of it got to be all of it.
But anyway, I would think, I would think it'd start at a point in time to go forward. There's, you know,
Yeah, but what about, it got to be all the way back?
Yeah, we'll have to.
all the way back to what? There's no clear determination of all the way back.
All the way-
What all the way
So whatever
back
we're
to-
doing, if we're
to your
still
legacy gap.
having a discussion, we're still not ADA compliant. So you're still open to litigation while you're doing the discussion about it, so.
I guess it's all the way back to what records we got.
Yeah, I've never really examined the website. I don't know what the scope of the documents are, and if I did, I would still not be the proper person to advise the board on the cost of making 100% of the website ADA compliant for screen readers. That's something that the consultant will have to tell the board. I just know that is there is a lot of litigation statewide on that issue. Mainly it has been larger counties that have received the lawsuits. However, I do know of one smaller county that was added to that list of lawsuits. I'm trying to remember the name now of that county. I just can't
This is
recall it.
confusing.
Anyways,
What is confused about this?
Commissioner Jones made a motion, I made a second to go on staff's recommendation to go ahead and scan the 1,511 pages, and then they'll produce a report stating what on the website is out of compliance, provide a robust accessibility policy for the website. And then there's, the cost to do that is $1,800, and then the cost of software and training to convert all documents prior to 2019 and in the future is $579.88.
So,
That's
yeah,
what we put in.
that's what you're
That's what
approving.
he's put in his motion, I put in my second.
Yes. As to the Small County Coalition Board of Directors, Commissioner Jones serves as one of the commissioner representative, and I serve as the staff liaison. There is still a Franklin County vacant commissioner representative seat. Board action to appoint a commissioner to that vacant seat.
I make a motion we appoint board chairman, Mr. Noah Lockley, to that seat on the Small County Coalition.
Second,
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion? I might not be able to do that.
So you been appointed, or you almost been appointed.
Time and going.
If one can't make it, the other can make it, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I know. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimous.
Commissioner Jones, most of those meetings are at the conferences, correct?
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's not a separate time to me. It's-
Item 4 is an informational item, no action needed. During the fiscal year 2018-19 budget workshops, the board agreed to pay for an upgraded phone system at a cost of $40,000 and an HVAC system in the administration building, a $15,000 cost at the sheriff's department as capital projects. Last week, the sheriff's department submitted a $46,821.30 quote for a new phone system. I informed Ms. Ginger Coulter, the sheriff's finance director, that until the county was able to recoup some of the $130,000 from our insurance claim spent on the purchase and installation of the communication console that was destroyed by the lightning strike to the FireNet tower, there would be a delay on approving that purchase. There was a delay with filing the insurance claim as there was still some part of the installation that was not completed as yet. We received that invoice for the final part of the installation on Friday and are in the process of completing the insurance claim. Keep in mind that in addition to the cost of the console, the county also spent upwards to another $60,000 to the FireNet and FireLink systems. When this board is ready to consider this request, I will need a determination from Attorney Schuler if this proposal can be considered a sole source purchase, or if the county will have to advertise for quotes to meet our bid policy. And this is more of an information for the board, letting you know that I got the request, but I have to hold off until we get some money. The board is spending a lot of money because of this hurricane. People don't realize it, but we really are, Commissioners.
Well, I talked with the sheriff, and he said they needed it. Said that one ain't, it mess up sometimes. Dealing with public safety. I talked to him Friday.
Okay.
After I left you. I called him and talked to him. He said they need it because it don't work all the time.
Now, Mr. Chairman, this insurance claim comes to the county?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay.
We filed through League of Cities, we filed an insurance claim
Okay.
for the communication console.
So what are you talking about, a week or so?
I don't know. I can find out more and I'll have an update for you at the next meeting and let you know how much cash was received. Another thing to keep in mind, the console that we were replacing was an old console. So the insurance company might look at that and say what that was worth versus the $130,000 we spent. I guess all I'm asking for is a little bit of time, yes, sir, a little bit of time to figure out exactly what our insurance claim is going to be, how
Okay.
much we're gonna get back. Then I can
Okay.
present that to you, and you gotta make a decision about the phone system. Just up to the board.
Let's take one step at a time.
Make Alan thing going.
He's coming right back.
Okay, well, I was gonna say, make a note, because Triumph was gonna try to help us with this fire net and stuff.
Yes.
Well, this is part of
Yes.
emergency response too.
Okay.
So if we don't get all the money back out of the insurance, then we need to add some more to
Good
this.
try.
Yep.
So need to make a note and tell Alan that,
I
so
will.
that when we go to apply to Triumph to get this fire net money back, that we're gonna need to get some money for this console that we had to put in also,
That's right.
to try to offset that cost.
Okay.
Well, what we gonna do, I mean, hoping something happen in the fight thing, in this telephone or in the meantime. We told them we had the money for this before, right?
Before the console we did.
And before the hurricane.
And the fire net.
And the fire
We
net.
told them we were gonna do the two. but
Yes,
they-
sir. The phone system and the air conditioning system in the
He done did the
administration.
HVAC. We're through with the HVAC.
I don't think we've done it yet.
I don't think we've done it yet.
I think
That
we've done
other
it.
HVAC was from a previous fiscal year for the cafeteria or something like that.
Well, if we did we budget this 40,000? And did we
No,
budget
no.
the 15,000?
No, we're gonna get it out of our capital,
Outlay.
Capital outlay?
our capital outlay funding is what we were
Yeah,
gonna
that's what
do.
we talked
So
about
if,
during the
to
budget.
answer your question, it was probably budgeted for in our capital outlay. That's something we agreed to during the workshop.
So we're not using any of our capital outlay money,
Not that
right?
I know of, not yet, sir.
Well, then we are ready to move on.
Unless
Yeah, if
it's,
it's budgeted for, then let's do
We're
It
ready to
was,
move
it was
on.
already, cause we pulled that done two this year.
it. Yeah.
That's what we,
What I'm saying is, we're not doing the
Right.
HVAC right now, so that's 15 grand, and we did 40 and it come in at 46. Let's move on with that.
okay,
because.
But that's coming out of capital outlay, not our
Yes.
reserve.
that's right. I
Right.
think that's why it was budgeted, capital
Okay,
outlay.
so the capital outlay's still there,
If
right?
that's different, I'll check with finance after, I'll
Okay,
notify each
yeah.
of you
'Cause
individually.
I know they were real concerned this morning about the amount of money we went through finance, I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Until we get some monies back, they were really concerned about that.
yeah,
But if we can, let's move on. I'll
Okay.
make a motion if we have the
Second.
ability to move on,
okay.
Second.
to get the phone system put in.
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. Any more discussion?
That's what you wanted, ain't it, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, cause I talked with him and he said, we need it cause when
It
they
went
get a
down
lot
during
of
the fire
cold,
and
they
the
go out.
hurricane.
That's what he told me. He goes out when they get a lot of cold.
During the fire and the hurricane, they lost.
We need to make a, the attorney's recommendation as to whether this needs to be bid out or whether this can be declared a sole source, right, Mike?
Yes, sir.
That was part of your,
That'd be part of the motion.
I'm
talking about
amending,
this live, just when he began presenting his item. I haven't heard of this before.
Yeah.
I'm amending my motion to include the attorney's
Getting with the sheriff.
review.
And I'm in my second.
For, the motion been amended. Y'all ready to vote? Any more discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Item number 5, county staff has received notification from Florida Department of Transportation that application cycle for SCOP, SCRAP, and SIGP grants are now open. These grants, which are state grants for transportation improvements, have funded the paving of River Road and Mill Road in Carabel in the past. SCOP funds could be used to repair or rehab county bridges, but cannot be used to replace a bridge. Both cities are eligible to submit a SCOP project, but if the cities did submit an application, the county would have to rank applications with any SCOP project the county was planning to submit, then submit the highest ranked application to FDOT. The county can submit one application for each category. However, the submission deadline is March 22nd, 2019. If you need more information regarding these grants, contact the county's planner, Mr. Mark Currington.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead.
can any of these funds be used for this, hickory dip that this young lady's been talking about today?
I will ask Mark.
I'd like,
That's bad.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we do that, or I'll make a motion that if any of these different funds, SCOP, SCRAP, or SIG can be used to repair that road, that's what we do. I'll make that in form of a motion.
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner
I
Barron.
second it, and I'll add in discussion. We've already, I think, submitted that once since I've been commissioner and didn't approve it, so
Yeah.
while you're talking to them, see if we can find out the answer to the quiz.
Why it wasn't?
What we're not doing right to get
Okay.
it approved, so I know that might not be possible, but
Yeah, we'll see.
When you
Put it in there due to the fact of Hurricane Michael.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that culvert's almost gone,
This is a priority.
and make sure you ask for the drainage
yes,
on that. 'cause
yes.
Yes, sir.
It's a big dip in that road, so they need proper drainage there, what it
That
say.
whole culvert's about to collapse.
Yeah, it's probably the left.
And Commissioner Bolt, you probably need to sit with Mark, because there's a lot of rules and regs to each of these grants,
I
so
will.
so you get a full understanding of what each one can and can't do.
Will do.
Okay?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Item 6, FDOT has opened the Transportation Alternatives Grant cycle until February 28th. Mr. Currington has stated that the main use of this funding is for trails and sidewalks. FDOT will consider up to 2 projects from Franklin County, but the county will have to prioritize these projects. Contact Mr. Currington to discuss possible projects if you need additional information.
Pleasure to vote.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, there's no, I'm just informing you, and then if you bring a project to Mark, I'll bring that back, and then you'll need to make a motion based on
Okay.
priority.
Mike,
Sir?
again, write this down because we've asked for this before. But from where the sidewalk stops in the city of Appalachia going west, out to the Burger King, Ace Hardware, IG8, we've asked for
Yes, we have.
to continue that sidewalk there many years ago, and there's nothing ever been done on it. And I'd like to see that project, you remember us doing all that? I'd like to see that project applied for.
Okay. I will.
Okay, just to see where we at.
Okay, I sure will. One more thing from DOT is item number 7. Attached to my report is their tentative 5-year work plan for Franklin County. Mr. Currington has asked that you note that no funding to finish the paving of Mill Road was included in this plan, so the board should consider applying again.
Michael, I didn't see that attachment.
Me neither.
Just send it.
It wasn't?
No, and I was
It's all
looking for
good.
that.
But just send it to me, so.
Because we
will.
put in from 12th Street out to
Yeah.
Tilton Road with the
Yeah.
pavement quit last time. And it's in the 5-year work plan, but I don't know what year
I
now.
did.
So could you try to resend that?
Oh, I will.
Pleasure
Lori,
to vote.
Lori, that was
Y'all-
part of PDF, anyway. Okay, item 8, now this is right with Anderson Construction. They've returned to the Lombardi, what they call the Waterfront Park job site. They've completed the general hurricane cleanup, were assisted by the county's road department with recovering the bundles of pressure-treated lumber that were moved by the storm surge, have stripped the wet drywall, rehung and taped new drywall, and install the hardy board sidings and fascia. The plan is, if the temperature stays above 50 degrees and the rain cooperates, good luck with that, to paint the exterior and interior of the building. The decking and pavilion won't be started until after the holidays. With all this in mind, the new project's substantial completion date should be in early February of 2019. I'll continue to update the board as the project progresses. This is something you asked me at the last meeting to give you an update, and that's where we are. We're getting there, slowly but surely. Item 9, inform the board that the sheriff has submitted the 2018 jail and medical inspection report. This packet includes the exit interview letter, corrective action plan, and the jail and medical inspection reports. As this report will be forwarded to the clerk for the official records, there's no board action required. However, if you'd like a copy of this report, let me know. I'll send that to you electric. You do, Commissioner? Okay. Send it to one.
I'd like
send
to
it
have it too, please.
I'll send it to all. Item 10, inform the board that Wilderness Coast Public Libraries have submitted the combined fiscal year 17-18 annual statistics for libraries, as well as the annual plan for service and budget for the upcoming 2018-2019 fiscal year. Again, no board action is needed, so I'm forwarding the report to the clerk. If you want a copy of that report, send it to one, send it to all. Let me know. Remind the board that our next meeting date will be on Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019 at 9 a.m., which is, again, it's a Wednesday. Just pay attention to that. The first Tuesday is January 1st, New Year's Day, a county holiday. Couple more items. One, I sent you a link yesterday to the YouTube about how to use the county's public portal system, search system. And I'd like to publicly thank Royce for that. The reason that there's not a request on my report for payment for invoice, because he did that for free. So I thank you very much, Mr. Ralston, for that job well done.
Thank you.
When
Thank
will
you
we
for
have
that.
it uploaded to use?
It should be I'll try to get it uploaded this week. And one more thing, there was a, Miss Estes asked to be on the January 2nd agenda to discuss this thing further. As per our policy, I need a motion from the board to add that, or add her to the agenda, or is that too soon, or?
I make a motion to add her, but, Michael, when you contact her, I'd really like for her to bring something to the board that's an actionable item,
That's-
some way that we can, you know what I mean?
That was my
Discussion.
That was my question this morning. I wasn't quite sure, clear what she wanted from the board.
Right.
So I'll tell her if she wants to get on the agenda, I need a specific action, what she expects from the board, and put it that way.
Well,
I
I mean,
talked to,
Go ahead.
I talked to Ms. Belcher over there in the office. That day she was, I was signing them papers, and I asked her specifically how long it'll be for them trailers. And it's gonna be about the end of the year, the way she talked.
End of the year, I thought in the spring, the end of the year,
End of the year before what?
before we get the trailers from
The trailers, she
CDBG.
said, cause I asked, remember when you called me to sign them?
Yeah.
I had to sign some papers for her and Mark. And I said, now, I'm getting a lot of people asking me questions about these trailers. She told me about the end of the year before that.
You talking about 2018 or 2019?
2019.
Ooh.
Oh, we're talking about Joyce, okay.
Oh, yeah. Because one of the things Joyce is talking about is the homelessness problem they have out there. So that's what he's tying in Ms. Belcher's,
I mean, all that,
CDBG funding.
and it's not, ain't nothing we gonna do no quicker. I don't know what, I don't know.
hopefully it won't take that long. But Mike, a lot of those issues that Ms. ST's bringing up here this morning,
Yes, sir?
we're already working on, as far as 10 trailers on one lot. That ain't gonna happen no more.
That's right.
If it does, they not getting a new home. They gotta do 1 unit per acre, just like I do, just like you do, and like everybody else has to do. So a lot of these issues are gonna be cleaned up. So you need, when you talking about putting her on the agenda, you need to clarify some of this stuff, because it don't need to come up in here. We're already working on that as county staff. No, we don't have code compliance, and we probably won't, but we know what needs to be done. It's part of the program. In order to get a new home, you gotta keep the insurance on it. You gotta pay the taxes on your property. You can only have 1 unit per acre. You can't have storage sheds and school buses for people to live in. A lot of these issues are already taken care of, which we didn't address that in public comment, because we don't. We let people talk what they need to talk. a lot of this stuff's already handled, what I'm saying. Now, she wants to come back and talk about the Hope Park. I mean, that's all right, but a lot of these other issues have already been taken care of, and it's part of the program of these new homes that we're talking about. You gotta comply with all this stuff. You can't have 15 school buses out there and 15 families on one lot, and all these double connections. All this stuff's already being handled.
And it, what Ms. Betty was saying was, the dealers, what they had to build a trailer, the storm tore them up, so they got to rebuild them,
Oh, the manufacturer.
the manufacturer.
Oh, it's a supply and demand situation,
Yeah,
not so
yeah.
much the funding,
It
okay.
ain't the funding or nothing, but they got to wait, they got to be rebuilt, cause a lot of them
Got tore up while they was building it.
yeah, they got blown away, so they got to start all.
I'll give Ms. Deborah a call, I'll give Deborah a call.
Talk to them.
Well, my point being is you need to work with Miss Estes
Okay.
and inform her of what we're doing and what's being done, and, you know, I hate to say this, but if the federal government can't take care of everybody, and the state government can't take care of everybody, how's the local government gonna take care of everybody? People don't want their taxes run through the roof. I mean, we can only do what we can do. And providing them a home and a shelter is one thing. I can't pay their electric bills and feed them and I can't do everything. You know, when we thought as a board was providing a shelter over their head was the main thing. That's a hand up. But we can't feed them and provide medical care and provide transportation. Ain't no way we can do all that. Unless you wanna run people's taxes through the roof, because that's where the government gets money. We haven't got no money tree. Somebody's got to pay this stuff. And I'm paying about all I wanna pay. You know, I don't wanna pay no more tax. And I don't think nobody else does. So, my point being is if the federal government, the state government can't do it, how you expect Little Franklin County to do it with $11 million budget? I mean, it ain't gonna happen. We're gonna do what we can do, and we're gonna help them best we can, and we always have. But like the lady said, we went over and cleaned all the properties off, and now there's 15 storage sheds back on there, all over again. That ain't gonna work. Ain't gonna work. And it's in the documents when we agreed to provide housing for these people, that they can't do that no more.
Yeah.
And that's the issue for some people, because they don't have no land, so they can't get a trailer. I understand, but I'm just saying, we can't do everything. If the federal and state government can't do it, how you expect us to do it? I mean, I feel for them and all that, and I do what I can for them, but I can't do it all.
I'll try and sit with Ms. Estes.
You already hollering we broke, and we got a whole year to go.
Yeah.
How are we gonna do it? I mean, I don't know how we're gonna do it. I'll do what we can do, but, you know, I don't know.
Well,
It's
this
gonna
board-
take nonprofits, it's gonna take churches, it's gonna take
Yeah.
other people kicking in, because the government can't do it all.
Do it all.
Ain't no way.
I'll sit with Ms. Estes and see what exactly she wants from the board, and then based on that, I'll make a decision whether to put that, put it
Yeah,
on the
I mean,
agenda. Does that-
certainly.
Does that
Don't
work,
bring this
Commissioner
stuff-
Jones, for you?
It's fine, because ain't nobody sick of it, so it's all
Yeah,
good.
okay.
A lot of things, you know, people got to realize well, I'm going to the county commission, but they should have come fussing at the county commission or saying, do this, do this. They should have we done anything? And if they'd have done that, they'd have known
What we've done thus
what
far.
was going on. I mean, we seen them, we was on the scene, we had boots on the ground the first day. And we know what was going on, and we happy. But it's just a situation where it's not gonna clear up overnight. It's gonna take time. And we doing our part, but people just,
People like Mrs. Estes has their heart in the right place.
yeah.
No
This-
doubt.
And I know we agree with that. This county commission helps people help themselves.
Yeah.
We're not a money bag, but we are a facilitator. We are an advocate. We are a cheerleader. And we welcome public input to lean on us. And that's what I think is the most important part of this commission.
Commissioners, y'all have a Merry Christmas.
You got
Yeah, you have,
Happy New Year.
you and your staff, y'all
Yep.
have,
We'll
y'all
see
have
you
a
all.
Merry Christmas.
You need to adjourn it.
We'll see. Oh. We still have your attorney you have to ask.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
No,
No mas.
commissioner comment?
I'd like that, announce everybody in Franklin County have a Merry Christmas on behalf of Commissioner District 4.
Merry Christmas, District 5.
I want all my folks in District 2 to take a long rest and have lots of naps over these next several weeks. Merry Christmas.
Well,
I'll go a step further, and I wish a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all the residents of Franklin County. And catch you, if you find yourself bored and you really have nothing to do with your time, you might want to come out and catch our Seahawks basketball team. They're still undefeated, ranked number 3 in the state. So
All right.
they done good. They got out last night. I seen that with these two eyes. They playing real good.
When are they playing
But-
St. Joe? When's the St. Joe?
January 4th.
Let's not bring that
in
up.
Franklin.
But I wanna, I said Merry Christmas the last time, so this time I'm gonna say Happy New Year and meeting the John.